Okay, we are live. Good morning. It's April 24th, 2024. You are at the Oregon State Marine Board quarterly meeting being held at the Astoria Public Library in Astoria, Oregon. We also have two of our members participating remotely at this meeting. Before we start our agenda items, we have some kudos and thank yous and announcements. The first one is that we do have a new board member, Steve Lambert. Would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Steve Lambert. I live in Ashland, Oregon. Married and have 3 kids down there that I've raised for the past 15 years in Southern Oregon. I've lived in the state for the past 25 years, and all of those 25 years have been in public parks management and recreation management. So very excited to continue the work at the board level, working with this great agency and the staff of this great agency on voting related issues. I've worked with them a lot over the past 25 years and really respect the work that this agency does. So happy to be part of it.
Great, thank you and welcome aboard. Member Withy, I believe you have something?
Yes, I sure do. Yesterday, Janine had us go down to the Westport boat ramp, and we toured the facility with the representatives from Clatsop County, Steve Mesky and Erica Kaiser. It was a wonderful visit. It was a beautiful day, nice and sunny, and the facility was exceptional. They gave us some history and background of what they went through to build that facility, and it was quite something to listen to. And they have more plans to expand the facility and serve the community. So we were very impressed, and we're very thankful we had the opportunity to see that. If you two that are on remote today get an opportunity to come out and look at it, I encourage you to do so. And even use it if you get the opportunity. Larry's ready to go fishing as soon as he saw the boat ramp. So
Yeah, I am.
They even staged so yeah, resident still had there we could observe. So we were impressed, and they had eagles flying overhead, so it was a beautiful day.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I had the opportunity to go out there in the middle of winter when they did the ribbon cutting, and just didn't have the time to get back out the next year to go paddle out there, but it's on our list of things to do this summer.
We were very impressed with Steve and Erica. You know, they are dedicated to that facility, and it's as we see across the state, that's what it takes to provide these facilities to the boating community. People who come in and they don't know what they're getting into to begin with, but they have the backbone to stay with it and learn and work with various organizations and the issues they have to go through, permitting and what have you. And you know, they're just wonderful representatives of the boating community, and it's nice to see they're out there.
Great, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, I have one other thing since we're talking about kudos. It goes to the director's report. I really am impressed by the emphasis that the entire boat Marine Board staff is putting on safety. You can see it threaded throughout the director's report. I'm really looking forward to this summer with the boating safety advocates. I think they're a great addition to the staff and the board. And I think they'll be great representatives for us out in the field. But if you go through this director's report, you can see the emphasis is on safety. I really kudos to the entire staff for making that a focus of what we do. So thank you all. I'll give you all a coin.
Thank you, Member Withy. I believe Vice Chair Early has some coins she would like to present.
Thank you, Chair Jackson. I have a couple of challenge coins that I would like to present. The first one is to Glenn Dolphin. I want to congratulate Glenn on always being so dedicated to his job, and also to the stellar newsletter that he puts out yearly. I have had the opportunity to be at the inspection of a port with Glenn, and he just is so caring and concerned about the clean marinas. And I just feel like his program has just really taken the next step. So on behalf of myself and the board, Glenn, I would like to say thank you and present you with a coin.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Val. I very much appreciate the acknowledgement. I love working at the Marine Board. It shows, I guess, I've been here 17 and a half years. I have no plans to go anywhere else. This is where my career is. And so thank you very much, Val, and board members. I very much appreciate it.
And so right on the heels of that, in reading the newsletter this year, I was really excited to see that my home port of Brookings Harbor received the Golden Anchor Award. And having spent a lot of time at this port, in fact, even just recently this morning, I can tell you that that is an extremely dedicated staff. And they've been through a few changes there with their port manager, but Travis has come up through the ranks and he's really doing a great job. And so I would also like to, right on the heels of the Golden Anchor Award, and present them with a coin as well. So thank you to Brookings Harbor for setting a standard for ports.
Val,
Thank you, Vice.
I wanted to let you know that next month on Wednesday, May 15th, is the next scheduled Port of Directors meeting in Brookings at their port office at 2 p.m. I will be there to award the Golden Anchor to the staff. If you are around, it'd be great to see you there as well.
I will be there and present them with their coin in person.
Thanks. I'll see you on May 15th at the.
Thank you,
Brookings
Glenn.
Port. Yep.
And thanks for all you do for the program and for all the ports and for all the other facilities that you're bringing on board. So again, congratulations and thank you.
And thank you, Vice Chair Early, and Glenn, thank you and congratulations to the Port of Brookings. Just one thing that I'm going to add to this, I did a little welcome video for the Marine Law Academy that was played on Monday morning. And included in that was a recognition and presentation of a coin and certificate honoring Sergeant Steve Dangler of Multnomah County Sheriffs, who served the county for 24 years as a Marine deputy, and he didn't serve the whole time as a Marine deputy, but much of that time was as a Marine deputy. And I know amongst my folks, he is going to really be missed. And he sent me a text thanking me for the presentation. With that, we're going to move to our agenda items. The first one is the approval of the minutes from the January 24, 2024 meeting. Any comments, questions, or motions?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes as written. Thank you, Jennifer, for doing a great job.
I'll second that. And again, I will also second the thank you to Jennifer. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. We can't hear anybody there right now.
Member
Are
Withy,
Are you able to hear us now, Val?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Member Withy, did you vote?
Yeah, I said, hey.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so the motion passes. The meeting minutes from January 24th are approved. Our next item is request for public comment. Just remember, the board encourages members of the public to speak to us. As a reminder, the board will not consider testimony on items up for discussion on today's agenda, or up for a decision on today's agenda. Speakers will be given 2 minutes to speak and allowed slightly longer at my discretion. Do not expect the board to interact with you after your presentation, although board members may ask questions to clarify a point that you've made. Board members, a reminder, speakers are addressing items which have closed to public comment. You can hear those comments, but the comments should not be considered in decision making. Feel free to ask speakers clarifying questions, but because of public notice rules, any deeper discussion with the commenter, staff, or other board members on a topic needs to be brought back as an agenda item at a future meeting or work session. We received quite a few written comments from folks, almost entirely related to the issue of jet boats on the Rogue. We also have about 13 people signed up to speak today. The first three, I'm going to just call out three names. First one speaking, the next two are on deck. Once we get through those three, it'll be the next three. So the first three are Senator Golden, Dale Day, and Tim Gilman. Senator Golden, I see that you're there.
Yes. Thank you very much. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name's Jeff Golden, and I chair the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and Wildfire and represent Senate District 3, much of the Rogue Valley in the Oregon State Senate. The river that runs through this valley brought me to live here more than 50 years ago, and it's a big reason I never left. Thanks very much for making space on your agenda to hear Southern Oregonians speak to this issue of jet boat traffic on a vital stretch of the Rogue, and for the opportunity to offer my own brief comments. I do want to make them brief so there's ample time to hear from people who enjoy and cherish this riverscape and are so devoted to its long-term health and viability. They're bringing testimony to the right people per the Marine Board's official mission to serve Oregonians' recreational boating public through education, enforcement, access, and environmental stewardship for a safe and enjoyable experience. That mission statement does have sturdy statutory backing. ORS 830.175 reads in part that the board may make special regulations consistent with the safety and property rights of the public. Goes on to list among the permissible regulations the establishment of designated speed and the prohibition of the use of motorboats. So we are having this conversation in the right place. I recently heard opposition to jet boats in this river, a part of the river, dismissed as an elite form of NIMBY from privileged riverfront owners unhappy about losing the peacefulness of their environment. I don't doubt they're unhappy. I would be if I lost the peace and quiet that drew me there, but that's not remotely the whole story. The number and diversity of people weighing in with state agencies makes it clear that this concern is much more substantive and broad-based than that. You'll get a full sense of that from the comments that follow mine, and I think they'll be powerful. What would be more powerful, what would more effectively convey what we're dealing with here, would be an actual visit to Tuvell State Park when these boats are loading up or passing through. That would bring home more than anything you'll hear today, the reality of the interface of these high-powered boats with this fragile stretch of river that draws so many families to swim, fish, or just enjoy a cool respite in our increasingly fierce summer heat. You'd also get a much better sense of the likely impact of this traffic on the Upper Rogue's quite unique fish runs. In the context of the basic goal that our waterways serve multiple purposes that reflect the diversity of Oregonians' recreational interests, it's important to remember that vast stretches of the Rogue River are and will continue to be available to the high-power jet boat traffic we're talking about today. This activity will continue along stretches of the river with a variety of riverside landscapes and wildlife to see. As an ex-whitewater river guide, I can tell you candidly that plenty of non-motorized users wouldn't be sad to see jet boats off the river entirely. But they accept the fact that others enjoy and use them, and their presence along a majority of the river's length below Lost Creek Dam for decades now is acknowledged and accepted. But that's not the case when it comes to the reach above Tuvell Bridge, the site of this morning's discussion. Expanding the jet boat's already extensive range into that stretch of river would exact a huge cost in terms of critical habitat, stable shorelines, professional livelihoods, property values, and the safety and recreational opportunities of thousands of families, local and visiting, who've come to love this river over the years. An option that would protect these values while retaining commercial jet boat access to many miles of this river has been proposed. I'm pretty sure you'll hear about it again this morning. From the perspective of long-term multiple use, it makes complete sense to me. I ask you to give it, and those who will be sharing their thoughts with you this morning, your full consideration. Thank you very much for offering me your consideration and for your service to our state.
Great, thank you so much. So Jennifer's going to provide timing assistance. So we're going to do 2 minutes. So if folks can, Jennifer, if you can chime in when we start approaching that 2-minute mark, that would be great. Our next speaker is Dale Day. Dale, are you there somewhere?
If he's on the phone, he may need to hit *6 to come off of mute. So Dale, if you can hear this, you might try *6 on your phone to come off mute.
All right. Dale, are you there? All right, we'll come back and try that one again. How about Tim Gilman? Tim Gilman, are you there? *6 if you need to unmute. Ann Batzer?
Somebody has a hand up, Chair.
Madam Chair,
Can you hear
I know, yeah, excuse me, sorry, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello.
we can.
Okay. It's very complicated to get into this meeting, so I hope we hear from Tim and Dale at some point. I'm a member of Upper Rogue Guardians. We formed because of our concern over the environmental damage, particularly to our treasured Rogue River salmon, and the danger to people who for decades have enjoyed floating the Upper Rogue River, but no longer are safe doing so because of the huge tour boats that operate out of Tuval State Park. Please take the time to read the many documents we have sent you because we have little time to talk to you today. Studies show that repeated jet boat trips on upper rivers disrupt habitat for our waning salmon population. And a 2022 survey that state parks did is full of harrowing stories of people who feared for their lives when they were swimming or wade fishing and encountered these tour boats with their devastating wakes. Now there are many jet boats appearing in these waters with the same environmental and safety concerns as the bigger boats. So you are now faced with the monumental task of regulating jet boats on Oregon's waterways. If you don't, we will have few salmon left in our state, and your annual fatality statistics will rise dramatically. It's a big task, but it's a lot easier to put regulations in place now instead of waiting for thousands more Oregonians to spend a minimum of $30,000 for a mini jet boat. Here's the good news about the Upper Rogue River. We've been studying this issue for years. We have documentation for our claims, so there's no need for you to reinvent the wheel. We've done the research, so use us to help you. If jet boats are not regulated, there will be few places left where we and our children can experience the profound, quiet life lessons that our Oregon rivers teach.
Thank you very much. And for the record, can you please state your name?
Yeah, my name is Ann Batzer, B-A-T-Z-E-R.
Great. Thank you so much for coming out today. Is Dale Day there? Dale, you may need to *6. You may need to *6. Tim Gilman? Tim Gilman, are you there? Okay, moving on. Don Blasser?
Tim Gilman is on. Looks like he may be having trouble getting through. Tim, you may want to disconnect and recall. And then it's *6 to unmute.
Okay. Let's try, okay, is Don Blasser? *6 to unmute.
Okay, hello, my name's Don Blazer.
Okay,
I know you're giving me 2 minutes. I'm going to do my best to speed read, and I'll stop whenever you tell me to stop. So here goes. Thank you for listening to me. I've lived on the Rogue since 1973 and enjoyed the river for over 50 years. I own a jet boat, but I never use it on the Upper Rogue, a stretch of river running 25 miles from Table Rock Road upstream to the Coal Rivers Fish Hatchery. There has been an informal agreement amongst guides and jet boat owners to stay off the Upper Rogue. In the summer of 2017, while rafting, I witnessed a jet boat run over the top of a swimmer near Tuville Park. The jet never saw the kid, but the kid saw the jet and dove underwater. I reported this near miss to the sheriff's office when I got off the river. I then learned there is no law regarding jets on the river, and no report was taken. I've been bothered by this incident since the day I witnessed it. Since the inception of commercial jet boat company, the Upper Rogue has changed. There's now a significant public safety concern. The Upper Rogue is too small and too shallow to safely accommodate jet boats and other river users simultaneously. A jet has limited navigation in many narrow channels and can't safely maneuver in these areas. There are many blind spots on the Upper Rogue and many places where jet boats must travel at high speeds to navigate. Adding jet boat traffic to the Upper Rogue is a recipe for disaster. The wakes of these boats create a safety hazard for people floating, swimming, or fishing the river. Jet wakes can swamp an inflatable rafts, flip kayaks, knock over people wading in the river. Individual jet boat use can be expected to increase as the population grows, and now with the advent of mini jets, our Upper Rogue will become a freeway. It has already started. There's nothing to prevent a commercial tour boat from operating in Shady Cove area or any other county launch site, as they now are running out at Tuville State Park. In addition to serious safety issues, user conflicts are created by jet boat operations. The Upper Rogue has traditionally been used by drift boat, fishermen, fishing guides, bank fishermen, rafters, other inflatables, and recreationalists. Jet boat operations in the Upper Rogue are incompatible with all these uses. From the commercial tour boat operations out of Tuville State Park, these jets push other users off the river over safety concerns, navigational pathways, and wakes they create. The noise from the jets, operations, and recently.
We've hit the time, so if you could wrap it up, that would be great. Appreciate your comments. And
all right, I suspected that. So I've got a concern over the swamp gliders that are there now too, and it's on the Upper Rogue. That's under the bridge. I'll jump to the end and finish this thing and go. Much of the Upper Rogue economy relies on river recreation tourism. The increase in the number of these high-powered watercraft used in the Upper River significantly impacts rafting, guiding, and fishing business. The restriction I seek would protect these businesses, aquatourism, but most of all, a public fatality like the one I almost witnessed in the summer of 2017. I hope the Marine Board and commissioners will intervene before it's too late. Thank you for listening to me.
thank you for coming out today. Did we ever get Dale Day in? Tim Gilman, did you get back in? Hello, I hear something. I heard somebody speaking, but it was very unclear.
I'm just gonna try to call back in.
Okay, while we're waiting, is Lisa James available? How about Kirk Blaine? Francis?
Hello, this
Onyen?
is Kirk Blaine.
Oh,
This-
okay,
this is
great.
Kirk.
Kirk, go ahead.
Hi, Chair Jackson and members of the Oregon State Marine Board. I am Kirk Blaine, the Southern Oregon Coordinator for Native Fish Society, and I focus on the conservation and restoration of wild native fish. I am testifying today to ask the Oregon State Marine Board to manage the Upper Rogue River similarly to how they manage the Deschutes River below Pelton Round Butte, and to limit the use of motors over 15 horsepower on the Upper Rogue River above Table Rock Road. ESA candidate spring Chinook salmon and state-sensitive species summer steelhead returned to the Upper Rogue River during the early spring months. These fish over summer in the Upper River for 6 to 8 months before starting to spawn and rear and recreate the next generation of fish, holding in that cold, clean water of the Rogue River. Spring Chinook salmon begin to spawn in the main stem Rogue River in August and September on shallow gravel bars and tight side channels when commercial jet boats are still running. Over the past decade, the increase of use of jet boats has decreased water quality, affecting the habitat of historical spring chinook and summer steelhead. The increased use of commercial jet boats has directly impacted the habitat available for fish to hold, spawn, and rear. Oregon State Marine Board can help protect these imperiled populations' habitat. I encourage the Marine Board to consider managing the Upper Rogue River similar to the Deschutes River. There are regulations that help manage for everyone in both the Upper and Lower Deschutes River. It provides an ideal approach to help support river users as well as the wild native fish that call the river home. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I look forward to engaging further with the Oregon State Marine Board as well as the other state agencies managing the use on the Upper Rogue River. Thank you all.
Thank you for your comments today. Did we ever get Tim Gilman back?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, I'll be done. Oh, okay, thanks. My name's Tim Gilman. I've been using the Rogue River above Tuval for the last 50 years. And I want to skip over the commercial operation side of this. I think it's been addressed by my colleagues. You know, the answer to that seems to me to echo Senator Golden's acknowledgement that the mission statement of the Marine Board clearly states that they prioritize recreational boating public. I wanted to take my time to talk about what I think should be equal or greater concern above where the commercial operation starts. As Mr. Blazer pointed out, there's been a proliferation of jet boats there, from small ones up to larger ski boats, actually. And going back to the mission statement of the Marine Board, it clearly says that they're concerned about environmental stewardship and safety. I recently read a quote in an article by the ODF considering all of the river I'm talking about sensitive habitat for salmon and steelhead. And from a safety point of view, has been pointed out before, this is heavy usage by people who rent rafts, own rafts, have, trying to make their living as guides. A lot of paddle boarders recently. And there are conflicts that are occurring between the users. These jet boats are now frequenting the area up through Shady Cove on a year-round basis. And the multi-use argument doesn't hold a lot of weight when you consider that jet skis aren't allowed. No wake zones are common for different areas. The state BLM and Forest Service restrict horses on trails, motorbikes in forest areas. Notably, the Hell's Gate jet boats in Grants Pass must idle through the residences. These residences are 20, 30 feet above the river, and the river's 4 to 5 times wider. The area.
Mr. Gilman?
Yeah.
We've passed the 2-minute line. Can you please wrap it up?
I'll wrap it up. Okay, thank you. I guess the next problem I see is these jet boats are going to start pulling skiers. And I would suggest that there's a liability concern. Since restrictions for jet boats exist in Grants Pass and other rivers, does the state have a liability when something happens, somebody gets hurt, if nothing is done here? Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments. Let's see, did Dale Day ever get in? Dale Day, are you out there? Okay, moving on. Lisa James. Lisa James, you might have to hit *6 to unmute.
I don't think she's on either.
Pardon?
She's not on, it appears.
Okay, how about Francis Oyoung? Francis? Okay, Jim Andrus. Jim Andrus? Andrus? Okay, Rania Haddad. Rania Haddad, are you out there? I see all these phone numbers showing up on the screen.
Jim is on, I believe.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please state your
Good
name.
morning. My name, yes, Ramia Haddad.
Great.
Okay. Until about 2014, jet boat operations above Table Rock Road at Bridge at Tuville Park were limited. The Rogue River above the bridge is unsafe for jet boats because it is narrow and shallow with blind corners. Also, it's the only significant spawning area for wild spring Chinook salmon. When Rogue Jet Boat Adventures, RJBA, started running without spotters, everything changed. In 2015, RJBA had a pilot program with state parks. They ran one 10-passenger boat just 4 times daily. State Park discontinued this program after 1 year, as Director Sumption wrote, because it conflicts with a portion of the 300,000 plus other visitors who already enjoy access to the Rogue River. In 23, RJBA says that they had about 14,000 customers in their 3 huge jet boats. This translates to at least 1,500 passes of joyrides in only 3 months. It conflicts with traditional uses on the river like fishing, rafting, kayaking, wading, and swimming. These traditional uses have tremendously decreased as people are concerned about safety. With the advent of the mini jet boats, the negative effects to fish, erosion of riverbanks, and user conflicts continue to rise. You have jurisdiction to change regulations to protect traditional uses and prevent user conflict before it's too late. I believe the best way to do this is to have a 15 horsepower restriction in this sensitive, shallow, and narrow section of the pristine Rogue River that we love dearly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Haddad. Did I hear that Jim Andrews?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, this is Francis O. Young. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. We can hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you for stating your name.
My name is Francis O. Young. I'll just take a moment to say that I think part of the challenge is this platform you use for the phone. It is very difficult because it is very particular. Let me just say that. So I think that's part of the problem. Hello, Marine Board members. Thank you for your service on this board to represent Oregonians and regulate and manage waterways, and for listening to our comments. My name is Francis O. Young. I am the Rogue Riverkeeper Program Manager. Rogue Riverkeeper is a program of the Klamath-Siskiyou Wildland Center, a nonprofit conservation organization based in Ashland, Oregon, with 4,500 members. I am a 32-year resident of Jackson County and a non-motorized recreator on the Rogue River and other waterways. As Rogue Riverkeeper, my primary concern is protecting the water quality and aquatic habitat of the Rogue. This section of the Rogue River is characterized by a channel that is shallower and narrower than further downstream. Activities like frequent high-volume commercial jet boat operations have a cumulative effect on the river, as well as impacting other users. The Rogue River has a very high ecological value as one of the last remaining strongholds of native fish on the west coast, yet it is under threat by numerous impacts from human activities throughout the basin. As we face a shifting climate, rivers and streams like the Rogue and their aquatic systems are threatened by high impact activities, and it may seem that any single impact is not significant, but that is how we've gotten to this place where native fish are now struggling to maintain their populations in the Rogue. This issue is within the authority of the Marine Board. I request that the Marine Board directly and specifically address these conflicts through a speed limit and help protect this aquatic and riparian habitat whose function is essential to sustaining native fish, as well as providing a multitude of ecosystem values and other benefits. In closing, I have several questions. heavy usage by high-speed jet boats have an impact on stream banks and stream beds. Will the Marine Board be taking direct steps to protect fish and wildlife, including habitat for spring Chinook salmon that only spawn in the Upper Rogue River from the current and future uses of jet boats in this section? Is the Marine Board willing to exercise their authority to protect the Rogue River, one of the state's most precious and cherished waterways? Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you for coming out today. Looking at my list here, Lisa James. Lisa James, are you out there? *6 to unmute your phone. How about Jim Andrus? Jim, are you out there? *6. Bob Hunter?
I am.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can. Please state your name.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Please state your name.
Thank you. Chair, members of the Marine Board, my name is Bob Hunter, and I have lived outside of Jacksonville. I live outside of Jacksonville, Oregon. I have boated, fished, and recreated on the Upper Rogue River and adjacent public lands for over 45 years and have witnessed the adverse impacts of jet boat use on the Upper Rogue, and I fear what will happen to this section of one of the state's most iconic rivers if jet boat use on this section of the river is allowed to continue and proliferate. A petition signed by well over 1,600 concerned citizens has been submitted to the board. It reads, the undersigned support prohibition, other than for emergency and public safety responders, the operation of watercraft with motors greater than 15 horsepower on the Rogue River between Table Rock Road Bridge and Cold River's Fish Hatchery. The purpose would be to limit noise and protect river user and public safety, fish and wildlife, water quality, stream banks from erosion, public parks and refuges, streamside property and property values, and traditional river users and businesses. A link to a 5-minute, 17-second video has also been provided to the Marine Board in support of this petition. We hope that you will view this video. I have also submitted a copy of a lengthy letter I have previously sent to Director Walker and other state agency directors on this issue that goes into more depth of the importance of the Upper Rogue and the impacts of jet boats. We sincerely hope that the Marine Board will exercise its statutory authorities to restrict motorized watercraft in the Upper Rogue as stated in the petition. We also hope that the Marine Board will hold a hearing in Jackson County on this issue as part of or separately from the Oregon kitchen table process that has recently been initiated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming out today and speaking. I see a whole bunch of phone numbers here. I'm going to call the last couple names and then I'm going to try to just go by some of the partial phone numbers that I see. Will Johnson? Will Johnson,
yeah,
are you there?
I'm here. Yes, can you
Great.
hear me?
We can hear you. State
Great,
your name and go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Will Johnson. I own the Ashland Fly Shop in Ashland, Oregon, and been there for about 17 years. And we book a lot of independent guides, Jim Andrus being one. I hope we hear from him. We run a bunch of independent guides on the Upper Rogue, and we've been hearing about this issue for quite a while. I do appreciate your time today, and thank you for hearing us out. I think really what we're talking about here is a real growing challenge that we're facing with the increased usage of jet boats, versus traditional kind of drift boats, and then other river users with rafts and paddleboards, as we're seeing that uses want to increase as well. The compatible experience, I think, is really what is the conflict.
it's a smaller section of river, and it just is incompatible with the larger, powerful boats and the more traditional drifting boats. We have seen an increase in fishermen wanting to fish as other fisheries in the Northwest have become more challenging to fish during this midsummer time. We have more inquiries from people wanting to come and fish because thankfully we do have reliable steelhead runs that come in early in the summer and use the Rogue River to stay there while during that time as they're getting ready to spawn in the fall. One of the reasons that they're prevalent in that section of river is thankfully we have this cold water refugia created by the dam. So we do have favorable conditions to fish. So we're seeing an increased amount of people wanting to come and fish, and they're running headlong into, fishing around jet boats at this time. So I've seen an increase over years in people wanting to come and fish, but being hesitant or also talking to me in the shop about their experience fishing around the jet boats with, the large wakes and the swamping and stuff like that. I've gotten a lot of feedback to that. So, we've done a lot in the Rogue River. I'll just wrap up. We've taken 2 dams out. We've taken out Savage Rapids Dam to help the sanctuary of the Upper Rogue. I really think that we've invested so much in this section of river, and it means so much to this community to have this operation and this increased operation on the river is really at odds with, I believe, what we're trying to create here in Southern Oregon. So again, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you for coming out today. David Torian, I'm probably butchering the last name. David Torian.
Great.
Star
Can
6
you
to
hear me now?
unmute. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Excellent.
I can hear
All right.
you.
Well, thank you. My name is David Torzan. I wanted to thank the Marine Board for taking time to hear our testimony. I've been a local middle school science teacher for over 20 years, and environmental science and science literacy is obviously an important skill. So I really appreciate you taking the time to hear some of our evidence here. You don't need to be a fisheries biologist or even a scientist to see the harm that rogue jet adventures and any fast-moving jet boats are creating on this section of the river. I've been floating this section for a long time myself. I floated with my kids, with my 83-year-old parents. I've also fished lots of sections. And as anyone who knows this section knows, there's lots of different rules for fishing on the Rogue. So it seems logical there should be different rules for boating also. When these boats come blasting through spawning beds, you can just see the damage physically. The turbidity increases, the wakes take out vegetation from by undercutting the riverbanks, and the waves are just they're a hazard for humans also. I've gone out there with my parents, and basically we were picnicking on the bank, and this is just anecdotal evidence. We never called the police. We never took any videos because that's just not how we operate when we're on the river. But our whole picnic was washed away because the guy didn't slow down. I was out there with my kids on some SUPs, some stand-up paddle boards, and we had to make an emergency maneuver in the middle of a rapid because he came tearing around the corner and couldn't stop. I mean, that section has places where the river is so shallow that he can't stop with his jet boat. And so, the people coming downstream in paddleable, steerable craft have to basically make way for this deadly operation. And then the last situation was my friend Mike and I were in our inflatable kayaks, just kind of parked on the side of the river, and he came tearing by and didn't slow down and totally capsized my buddy Mike. And this was his first time on the river, so it was not a fun experience. So my kids, my parents, and my friends have all had adverse experiences with Mr. Grimes. The use of public land is also just a shocking thing to me. I can't believe that he actually is claiming that he can put a dock in a public park below the high water mark. It's crazy. I mean, does that mean I could sell items from any dock that I want to install anywhere along the river as long as no money changes hands on the river? They can just pay me with a phone or with a credit card. it just doesn't make sense. The wildlife that's being damaged by this is not just the fish. As I've said, I and my neighbors, as well as the public lands around us, have been losing trees left and right. You can see the waves wash the banks away, and you can see living trees, not just dead snags, but living trees falling down into the river at way higher rate. Never mind the clogging of people's irrigation pumps and the damage to our equipment. So, for a variety of reasons, from, fishing to safety to wildlife to erosion, I really think that we're prioritizing basically private profit over public safety. And if you look at the historical uses of Tuval, that swim hole has been there for decades. People have raised their families there and shared that for multi-generational activities. But now it's basically being prioritized for one person, one company, and it's being framed as some sort of NIMBY elitist movement to fight against this. But really, this is about the common person. This is about common access and common usage, and about not prioritizing private profit over public safety. Thank you for your time.
Looks like Laura might be frozen. Oh, she's back. I was going to ask member early to, but looks like Laura's not frozen. Laura, he wrapped up his testimony right when you froze on the screen. So,
Okay. So the last people that we have on our list that we haven't heard from is Dale Day, Lisa James, and Jim Andrus. I'm seeing several phone numbers. I see like 6 phone numbers here of people that may be waiting to testify. So if Dale Day is out there, please *6.
Chair Jackson, they also may be here for the grants.
Right, I understand that. How about Lisa James? Lisa James, are you out there? Okay, Jim Andrus.
I am Lisa. Hello.
Hi, Lisa. We can hear you.
Hi.
Please state your name and go ahead.
Lisa James. Thank you. How long do I have?
2 minutes, give or take.
Okay.
We'll let you know when 2 minutes are up.
I am a Rogue River frontage owner. I own 600 feet of riverfront, and I'm taxed into the middle of the river. And I've lived out here for 35 years. So my perspective and the reason I volunteer with the Upper Rogue Guardians is essentially my base question is, at what point are these jet boats too large and too frequent? No, they're unmitigated. Nobody has been paying attention as they get bigger and bigger and more frequent and more frequent. And I have literally been standing on the edge of the bank yelling at them to slow down because there are kayakers and literally stand-up paddle boarders. Throughout the history, this stretch of Upper Rogue River, which is more narrow, more shallow with blind corners, has been heavily populated by unmotorized users. And I include drift boat users, the fishing guides with their little 15 horsepower outboards as in that category, because they weren't causing danger as these jet boats are. And then there's the ecological damage that you've been hearing about, which we have some volunteer biologists and other people working on substantiating, but we can see it with our own eyes. I'm known as the lady whose trees fall in the river every time a jet boat passes, and I can show you how much my bank has eroded from where I originally placed my sprinkler heads 25 years ago. So we wanted to bring to your attention, because you really are the agency that can help protect the non-motorized users on this stretch of river, and there are many precedents around the state where jet boat and non-motorized or personal watercraft have been regulated. In the beginning, I watched jet skis go up and down here, and then you banned them. And now we're seeing just the dominance of these boats. They'll take 53 people with 3 boats in succession, spinning around, 25-seater, 18-seater, and their original 10-seater. And when they started out, they said they would never use, I have a quote from the paper that quoted Mr. Grimes saying they would never use a boat larger than 16 seats due to the special nature of the upper road. But money is a driver, and logic went out the door. And we think that they have become too large, too frequent, and irresponsible. And I'm concerned it's going to take someone getting killed before something gets done. Denman Wildlife is on both sides of the river where they do not adhere to a no-wake zone. And yes, I'm a property owner, but that's why I have a front row seat to watching this happen. Do you have any questions?
Great, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
One last call for either Dale Day or Jim Andrus. Okay, thank you everyone for speaking to us today. I believe Director Warren has some comments on this issue and the multi-agency process known as the Oregon Kitchen Table that's being used to help find some resolution to this issue. With that, our next agenda item is the director's report. Director Warren, the floor is yours.
Sure. Chair Jackson's a member of the board, Larry Warren, director of your Oregon State Marine Board. And as you heard today, there is a lot of interest in the Oregon Kitchen Table process. And I think more importantly, the interest is what comes after the Oregon Kitchen Table process. So I'm going to talk just real briefly about the Oregon Kitchen Table piece, which is, it's a new thing for our board. It's something we haven't directly participated in, but there have been processes that have gone on through Oregon Kitchen Table that we have been a part of. And essentially, I think what's exciting about this process is for the first time, you've got Department of State Lands, you've got Fish and Wildlife, State Parks, Marine Board, 4 agencies coming together to use Oregon Kitchen Table to start the process of gathering community input and understanding what the values are for that area. And one of the things that they do really well is reaching out beyond some of the normal groups that we're aware of and that we know want to participate in our processes. So I think when their process concludes in midsummer, we'll have a really good baseline for Marine Board staff to come back to the board and share what the Oregon Kitchen Table's found, and then start to frame out with the board what comes next. Because again, I think that is the piece that a lot of the folks are interested in. It's just making sure we don't go through a kitchen table process and then never consider the information that was provided to us. So as a reminder, when we have issues like this that are kind of a bigger, broader issue, typically what we do is if we're looking at rulemaking or upping some education or doing those things, we would start to do some work sessions around an item where we would bring people in to talk directly to you in it's still formal, but it's less formal than a board meeting. So it tends to be a more two-way dialogue, which I know the board values, is being able to actually talk with people. So I think this issue is, again, you heard this morning's big enough. That's probably, this will probably rise to that level where there'll be some future work sessions after we get through the kitchen table process, where you'll have a chance for some direct presentation and dialogue from all the groups interested in the issue. And then, some calls to do some work in the community. Definitely, as we go through the rule process, I know the board typically asks staff to make sure that we do our rule meetings and things in the community so that everyone can participate and be a part of that. So I would foresee some of that in the future as well, as we work with you on what the board needs to do any decision making as follow up for the kitchen table process. I would also offer that we have had staff down in the area looking and having some meetings, but again, it's hard for us until we get going in our rulemaking process to hear from everybody. I know Member Withy's always pushing us to make sure that we're out there talking to people and trying to get ahead of those types of issues. So I think that, again, the kitchen table process will be a good piece of that. But just to wrap myself up, I think it's important that the board recognizes that's a starting point for you as a board. It's not the ending point of the process. So that's where I'd wrap, and then I'd answer any questions about that. And then whenever you're ready, Chair Jackson, I can do the rest of the director's report as well.
I just want to say thank you for including this discussion item on your report. I want to hear from other board members, but it seems to me we should let the process play out and maybe give us some sideboards on the issue. And then again, ask staff to come back to us maybe at our October meeting and start talking about rulemaking on the issue and what our next steps are going to be. Any board members want to chime in quickly?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I keep turning my camera off by accident. So, Director Warren, perhaps if you could just take a second to let those that are still on the line and listening kind of know what our process is for the rulemaking process, because it's not an overnight thing that happens. And so even if we started it right now, it would not have a solution until after the summer is over. So allowing the kitchen table process to go through its course and come up with some better, I guess, information for us for the rulemaking process might be helpful.
Thank you for that, Member Early. And that's an excellent point. I think definitely there's probably some folks we heard from today that are frustrated with the speed that some of this has played out. And I think part of how we help with that is, again, the genuine engagement and the commitment to do something with the Oregon kitchen table process next. Typically, our process when we open rulemaking is kind of the first thing Chair Jackson mentioned was we start to set some sideboards with the board. What are some areas you want us to look at? What are some areas you're not willing to go as a board? What are some things that you want staff to explore, get more information? And then we go do that. And then usually at the next board meeting is when we start to bring in those community groups to come in and do some direct presentations. Certainly, we've heard a lot from folks today, but there's also folks that are part of these jet boat operations that would also want some time to talk to the board and talk about what they do and how they believe they fit or don't fit into the community's activities. So then that piece helps the board. Typically, the next thing that the board does is kind of winnow it down into a pretty close to a final product and have staff go out and do that work where we tidy up, get it into real rule language, take the board sideboards, take what you all have told us to do, and then bring back a final rule for a vote. So it does take a bit of time. And I think one thing that folks lose sight of sometimes, there's some boards that meet monthly, our board meets quarterly. The good news about that is it gives staff time to bring back completed staff work. So we're not just giving an update every board meeting, we're actually bringing back a product and moving into what's next. So I think that we'll see that. And, I think right now everybody's got different ideas about some things. You heard some ideas today that I think are ones that, would certainly be part of those sideboards as we look ahead for discussion and evaluation. And so, but I think, again, for now, I'm interested now. The community, the surveys are about to go out for the Oregon kitchen table. We'll start to get some more information and then we'll do our own processes. So sorry, it was a bit long, Member Early, but yeah, our process, I think I hit all the pieces. And if there's a part you wanted to cover, certainly fill in the gap for me.
No, thank you, Director Warren. And I'm excited to see how the kitchen table process works because I think that it would be beneficial to our overall rulemaking process, and it may actually speed it up. So because a lot of the work will have already been done. So I look forward to hearing about this in the fall and finding out how this process has gone. Maybe we'll even hear something later this summer.
Member Early, that's a great point. I've thought myself that some of the rulemakings that can take well over a year to do our own public information gathering, we'll be starting at a different point than we've ever started from when because some of that baseline community engagement's already been done through a different process. So I'm encouraged by that as well.
Member Withey, Member Lambert.
Yeah, I have a few comments. I really participate the public engagement this morning. I am not familiar with the issues on the Rogue River, the Upper Rogue. So it's important to me that I hear from the public and I become educated in what the issues are. And I really encourage everybody to stay engaged, even though there's some points of frustration you're going to see through this process. But we can't make a good educated decision unless we go through the process. and we understand what all the issues are and what's the best way to protect the river and enhance the boating opportunities to the extent we can. So I encourage you to stay with the process and stay engaged, keep track of how we're progressing. If you have issues and concerns, you continue to bring them forward to us so that we can come up with the best possible solution in the end. So again, thank you for your participation this morning.
Great.
I'll just,
Thank you, member.
Chair Jackson, I'll just, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't see, the camera is showing just a wall, so I can't see body language or hands being raised. Thank you, much better. Member Lambert, go ahead.
I was just going to add to what Member Withy said regarding the public participation process. I think I've heard from some in the community the frustration over the time that it might take through this Oregon Kitchen Table process, but I think the fact of the matter is public participation doesn't happen overnight. We want to hear from folks in the community about how they use the river, their values for the river, and that takes time. So I'm excited to see this Oregon Kitchen Table process play out. I think that it has the opportunity to bring a lot of input and voices that might not have been heard through the traditional public commenting process to the board to make an educated decision on the best path forward in the future. So excited to see that.
Thank you. Member Warren, do you want to continue with your, or Member Warren, Chair Warren, Director Warren, would you like to continue with your report?
I would. Thank you, Chair Member Jackson. Well, the first thing I want to do is it wouldn't be appropriate today to not recognize that today is Admin Professionals Day. And Jennifer gets my same speech every day, which is I actually don't like that title for Jennifer because not because I think it's a disrespectful title. It's just she does so much more for the agency. And if you had to take a vote of one person that makes the whole agency more efficient, it would be Jennifer. And if you had to pick one person in the agency that keeps me out of trouble mostly, it'd be Jennifer. And the highest praise that I could give Jennifer is that just the trustworthiness. There is, it's really rare to find someone like Jennifer that you can share things with. She helps members of the public. She's committed to doing those things. And she just really brings such great excellence to that. And I know the board appreciates her support as well. So I won't throw it at you, but I've got a Dutch Brothers gift card for you. And I really appreciate you, Jennifer, and all that you do for us. So,
thank you, Jennifer.
And then wanted to just highlight for folks that Brian, you won't see Brian Paulson at the meeting today, not because he's not interested as our boating safety manager, but just as a reminder, he's in Leadership Oregon. And there was a few dates that conflicted with Leadership Oregon in our board meetings. And Leadership Oregon is a one-year program. It's a really neat opportunity for people that are up and comers in state leadership. And it's 2-day commitments a month. And it's really important that he's there. So he's always torn when he can't be everywhere at once, but he's really going to grow a lot out of that Leadership Oregon program. So I'm supporting him taking the time, even though it means missing some of the board meetings. So I just told him I would say that at every board meeting, so nobody thought that Brian had just disappeared and didn't care anymore. And then just wanted to highlight, Member Withy, you'd recognize kind of the boating safety advocates piece of our outreach. And I think that we are going to see some great things this summer. Last summer, we didn't have them on board until really July, almost August, before they were functional. They're already in, they're trained, they're already doing events. And it's going to be the first time in the Marine Board history where we have, not maybe the history, but we've got 5 dedicated staff for season all summer to go out and talk to people about boating safety, waterway access, and hear and be involved out there. And they're already going to some great events, and they've got more great events scheduled. So it's going to really change the posture of how much external engagement we're doing, and just really excited to see a full summer of data. And Brian just mentioned that he knows the board would like to have another discussion about statistics and what they bring. And he mentioned that January might work a little better than October. because he'd have a full suite of data then and feels like he could be more informed. So we might talk about that under item G, but the boating safety advocates are going to be, I think, a game changer for our agency. So with that, I just take questions on the agency director report.
I have just a couple of questions and comments. First of all, on the BSAs, just out of curiosity, do we have any returning BSAs this year?
Member early, we have 2 returning, 3. 2 returned. We were going to have 3. I think we ended up with 2. So 2 of them are returners and 3 are brand new. And they've been going through training the last few weeks to get up to speed. And they're all just really excited about the opportunity and ready to go. So.
Great. That's great. And then I have a question regarding the social media. Do we have statistics about that perhaps can be included in one of our future meetings in the board book? I know that most social media sites put out some pretty dynamic statistics on viewers and things. So if Ashley could maybe give us just a little blurb on that, that'd be really nice to see how we are reaching out to people.
Member early, I see Christy back there taking notes, and I know that we do get some statistics off of that. So that is definitely something that we can either include in a director's report or a standalone agenda item so that we can call out our social media engagement. So.
Great, thank you. And then one last thing, the Coos Bay docks. Do we have any recourse for a boater responsibility?
So, member early, Janine's already making her way up here. And so I think it would be helpful for those that don't know Janine to start by just the Reader's Digest version of what member early's talking about. And then I think you're probably ready to share a little bit about where the process is at for recourse and follow-ups.
So for the record, I'm Janine Billette. I'm our boating facilities program manager. Back in February, a large commercial boat that was being moved by 2 tugs hit the east side docks located in Coos Bay. It dislodged one piling completely and damaged another one. Essentially, all of the docks had hinge joint connection issues and damage. We've been working with the city and the Coast Guard doing investigation on this. The Coast Guard is handling things that are under $500,000 of damage. We are at the edge of that. A dive inspection is being scheduled. When the piling was damaged, there's a chance that the dislodging of the piling actually impacted the boat ramp. And we want a dive inspection to tell us whether or not the concrete on the boat ramp was also damaged, but also to tell us whether or not the piling was bent or snapped at the mud line. If the piling is just gone, it makes installation of the docks easier. If it is embedded as a snapped item, we are going to have a customized dock designed because the piling location will have to go in a different place. So it's no funding from us. It's all going to be covered through insurance, but trying to help the city get a good product out at the other end of it is where we're spending some time and resources to help them through that.
Thank you, Janine. I appreciate that.
So I can barely see Member Withy's hand going up. So Member Withy.
Yeah.
Thank you for turning the camera.
I have a couple things. On the boating fatality that occurred on the South Umpqua, was that a motorized or non-motorized boat?
Member Withy, let me double check myself on that. I don't want to give incorrect information. I believe it was a motorized, but I want to double check that one.
See, the problem again is not wearing PFD, so we continue to have that issue, I guess.
Yes, Member Withy. You know, I often like to tell people, I boil it down to if you paid attention, stayed sober, and wore a life jacket, we probably wouldn't need a boating safety program. So,
looking at our revenue stream, seems everything is positive except registrations, and I don't quite understand why registrations are down. So I don't know what we can do about that. It seems that tiling's up, the registration's down. That seems inconsistent. Just curious.
Yeah, I remember with you, that's still a part of a bit of a national trend where registrations are soft. I think some states saw some bumps during COVID. We saw a little bit, but not as big as some of the other states. And, you know, there's all sorts of hypotheses on that around everything from, you know, boat prices haven't gotten any cheaper lately, so maybe more people are owning boats together. There's thoughts that, you know, people like Member Early that probably own like 8 boats. She might, you know, look around and depending on the fishing season, she might opt to not register a drift boat one year because the fishing season's down or, but it's certainly something that we are paying really close attention to because of course it drives a big piece of all of our revenue.
As a side note, I understand Director Warren owns quite a few boats too.
I won a fish finder this weekend and I tried to convince my wife I needed to just buy a new boat to put it on and she saw that a little differently. But we'll remember with you on that registration piece, it's something, again, I think it's a good conversation with the board. We're also pushing this summer again with our marine law enforcement partners on registration compliance. That's still, our compliance is probably not where we'd like it to be.
Then looking at the award we're receiving in the GIS program, who is ESRI?
So remember with the ESRI, and it stands for something really important, but I can't remember all the acronyms, but it's a national company organization. The award is actually happening down in San Diego, and it's quite a big deal for us. So the state contracts with ESRI, all the state agencies, not all, a lot of us that have GIS use ESRI as our service provider. So they're a software company that provides some of this service. And we actually, I don't know if we even figured out who put us in for the award. We think maybe ESRI itself was impressed with how our team was using that software and nominated us. So
it's pretty impressive, the national attention we're getting as an organization. So it's really reflective on how valuable our staff is and how they're respected nationally. So again, kudos to the staff and everything they're doing. Josh was working on an update of the boating rules. And I just don't know where that stands right now. I thought we were going to publish it this year, but with Josh leaving, maybe that's been delayed.
Remember with you, it's been delayed some. So we have quarterly, generally, we as managers meet offsite to just talk about some of the more of the higher level strategic type things that we're working on, kind of rise up out of the day to day. And we just had one of those meetings a few weeks ago, and this topic came up of sort of a simplified version of some of our rules. And it's something that Brian still has passion for, and Alan's recognizing, I think, is more and more is that we need something to just make it a little easier for boaters to understand all the ins and outs of our rules. So it hasn't been lost, but you're right, it's been slowed down.
I think it's important that when we do publish the updated rules, that we do it outside the peak of the boating season, so everybody has an opportunity to understand the rules before they get on the water. So maybe we need to delay it until next boating season.
Yeah, and that'd be ideal, right? If we can get everyone educated before they get out there. So
that's all I have.
Member Lambert, do you have anything?
Yeah, a couple of questions to follow up on the registration and titling discussion. I noticed that as well, and I'm curious, has there been any correlation, or is there any effort to draw any kind of conclusions as to what drought impacts across the west of the state maybe having to do? I've just heard anecdotally from folks down in Southern Oregon that after several years of kind of drier reservoirs, they've sold their boats and maybe got out of boating, and that's concerning to me on multiple levels. So anything that you've seen on that?
Yeah, member Lambert, that's definitely something that we've watched. And, you know, in the valley right now, there's been some changes to the reservoir levels with the Corps. Southern Oregon's had some, you know, even in what good water, still some tough time keeping reservoirs full. And we do believe there's been some impacts from that where somebody just elects to not register their boat because they're just not going to be able to get out and use it. Or back to kind of the compliance, I think sometimes people think, well, if I'm only going to get it out a few times this year because of water levels, I might risk not registering my boat and just see if I can get by on those few trips. So I definitely think it's something that the Marine Board itself, as we look into a longer term future, we've got to try to work with the marine manufacturers, understand a little more data about what's being sold, because I think it's going to impact what types of boats people are buying, where they're wanting to go, and what they're registering.
The only other thing I would have is I talked a little bit at my introduction about working with this agency over the past 25 years and how great it is. And I would just give Janine kudos for the work that she just said that she's doing, working with the port and helping them work through a difficult situation. It's that culture in this agency that reaching out to local entities on multiple levels and assisting them through difficult processes that they might not be experts on, that I think is what makes this agency above and beyond other state agencies, frankly, that I've worked with in my career. So kudos to the culture here for that.
Yeah, I enjoyed the video that Janine was in. So thanks for sending that out.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Member Withy, for calling that out. Yes, that was Janine didn't know she was an actress till I think she was at a meeting and they put her on camera. So,
But it's really nice to see us working with Washington and other states in supporting the program. So I enjoyed that. So thank you.
Well, and I really appreciate as board members calling that out. Sometimes, we should and do deal with some of the difficult parts of boating. But one thing that gets lost sometimes is the Oregon State Marine Board nationally is looked at often as what are we doing, because we're the only Marine board in the country. And so we're often, even though it might not feel that way to everybody, we're often kind of ahead of the curve in terms of figuring things out and looking at how we're going to address new technologies. And so, and a piece of that is certainly our facilities and the things that they're doing. And so appreciate you recognizing that.
Thank you. So we've been at this about an hour and 15 minutes. I'm going to suggest that we take on one more item and then take a 15-minute break. So let's move into item B, the annual review overview, process overview.
All right, Chair Jackson, I think I can make this one quick, I hope. So the governor, when she was elected, came on board last year. She came out with agency expectations. There's 10 of them. One of those expectations is that directors have a review every 2 years. And the only piece that's sort of interesting about that is that we as a Marine Board, and there was actually a lot of boards and commissions, we're already sort of ahead of that, and that we do annual reviews. And so a few of us said, well, we don't want to go backwards on that process. We actually appreciate getting the annual reviews and the board discussions that come out of that. So we've been giving our input on what that might look like. So this is my proposal to the board about a process that meets the governor's expectations, but then also maintains annual reviews for the director position. So the Marine Board was selected in the governor's expectation of having an every 2-year review to have that occur in December of we're in an even year, right? December of the even year. And so we kind of have two choices. We could keep doing the board review in July, but then we'd have to do this governor review, which the board will be a part of in December. Or we can take this year to say, let's hold off doing the typical July review. And then in December, we'll go through the governor's expectation, which will be a little more formalized review, but the board will still be a part of it. And then the following year, 2025, we would do kind of the normal board review process. So we would get off track a little bit from our July, but we'd catch up in December and then get in a rhythm that would therefore kind of play out till they change the way they do reviews again. So that's my, I guess, proposal suggestion to the board. But if you all want to maintain July and then do another one in December, that works just fine for me as well. So.
Well,
I think that's a great idea.
I concur.
December versus July. I would prefer it be off the peak voting season.
Yes.
So I concur with that.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
probably just for documentation. Remember earlier, it might not be bad for the board formally kind of accepts that as the director's review process. So.
Oh, I would make a motion to change the director's review to December of each year to coincide on the even number years with the governor's expectations.
I second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? I call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Let's take a 15-minute break. I'm waiting for the live light to go off. All right. I forgot and I went outside and I didn't close the curtains all the way. I think it's not too bright, right?
Looks fine from our end. She good to send it live if she wants. Okay, you're good whenever, Laura.
Okay, we are back. We're at item C on our agenda, the key performance measure update. Director Warren, go ahead.
Yes, Chair Jackson, staff presented some proposed changes to our KPMs at the January meeting. And this is just an update on process more than anything. We took the feedback that you heard and staff has been working on changing our key performance measure proposals based on that feedback. And then there's another process that happens outside of the board. So I wanted to make you aware of that we're in that part of the process now where we've presented them to different decision makers and different people that also provide input on those key performance measures. So we can continue to fine tune and grow those in a way that makes sense, both for the executive branch and the legislative branch together. And what will happen next is we will come back in July with the output of that process and what we heard from you with what would be our proposed KPMs to put in our budget. So I wanted to make sure you knew that process was going on. But one of the things I wanted to call out very specifically was the board had a lot of discussions around outreach. And when the managers went back and we actually re-listened, so a few of us re-listened to the recordings, and we really wanted to make sure we understood where that discussion was at from the board. What occurred to us was the board has continuously been interested in outreach as a specific idea. And while it might not nest into a KPM really well, we thought it was long overdue to have a very specific discussion with the board about what we do with outreach, what the board wants to see with outreach, and how we use our resources and how the board would like some of that reported back so the board understands what outreach we're doing. So again, it's in item G, but I wanted to call it out in the KPMs because that's why it's there. Was we've got a proposal in July to have a lengthier discussion specific to outreach with the board, because it just feels like an area, maybe, I don't know that we're not together on it with the board, but it feels like there's an opportunity for us to make sure we're getting the board what they need in terms of our outreach and report back. So that's where we're at with the KPMs. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody?
So you don't want
Member
feedback
Withy?
today? Do you want to wait for another meeting?
Member Withy, always willing to take feedback. I think that what I envision in July, I don't know that we'll have enough agenda items to do a afternoon work session, but I envision it, if assuming we don't, that we would have an extended discussion where we present where we're at. But I think just as importantly, hearing from the board about, is there areas you want us to explore more? And sometimes it feels like, I'll just say from the staff side, we say, boy, the board doesn't seem happy with our outreach, but we just do more and more and more and more and more and more, and we're all over the place. So that tells us that we're not doing the outreach that you're expecting, or we're not doing a very good job of telling you about that outreach. And it could be a little bit of both.
So I look forward to the July meeting where we can talk about it more, but I think outreach for me is really working right now. I think you're doing the things that I had imagined you would do in outreach. You're reaching out to the disadvantaged community. You're introducing voting opportunities to more young people. You're bringing on voting safety advocates. That's what I envision with outreach, but I would like to have a bigger discussion like you're proposing in July and pursue that through.
Great, Member Withy.
Thank you, Member Withy. I'd like to second that. To me, implementation, like full implementation for a whole voting season of the BSA program, to me that's something that's really important to me. And I think, that's part of what I was envisioning, because getting people out there and getting the message out there during voting season. I know last year was a bit of a short mess, but to me, that's kind of what I envision. I also really, again, look forward to having that discussion. I guess we're going to say maybe in January now, of kind of a summary of details and data on what that program has actually brought up. Any other comments, questions? Nope. Hearing none, we're going to move on to item D. That's the budget overview with Christy Cornish.
Now, Chair Jackson, as she gets set up over here, I told her that you all would save all the really hard questions for her today, and that you guys would be very tough on her, make sure she really earns this. We're just getting the slide deck set up on our side. Just
I'll
that's
go
the
ahead and
pause
just start
here.
introductions, and or maybe you can catch up with us. Good morning, Chair Jackson, members of the board. For the record, my name is Christy Cornish. I'm the Business Services Manager. And what I'm going to do today is provide a budget overview. This isn't an actual budget presentation for the 25-27 budget, because we're still formulating that. Want to go ahead and there, that one. So what we currently are in the middle of is what's called the agency recommended budget, the ARB. And so the first step is last month in the March 14th, we did what's called a kickoff. And that's with the Chief Financial Office and Governor's staff. And they do presentation, they provide basically a state revenue, which, by the way, they are at this point still thinking it's flat. They'll come out with another forecast in May, and provide timelines and what that process will look like for forming the budget. Then what we're doing right now is establishing our current service level. You take this current biennium's budget, you add in anything that maybe we did limitation requests, any kind of e-board requests, you phase out any kind of projects. For example, ARPA will come out of that, and then you come up with that base budget. DAS informs us what the inflation rate is. We add that to the actual budget. I think this current round, it's at a 4.2% inflation rate that we will add on to the top of that. And then that is basically what would be our 25-27 base budget that we will go to the governor's office and CFO's office for review. Then they will take a look at it. They will match it up, make sure that we're in alignment with other agencies, that everybody's, exact match, we're on the same page, and then that'll go to the governor's office. Can we kick on to the next one? And then the budget will be reviewed by the governor's office. They'll make sure that we fit within the priorities, everything is looks good to them, and then they send that back to us in the fall, and that's called the GRB. That's the governor's recommended budget, and we'll receive that in December. Then that's what we present. We present the GRB to the legislature. Then the legislature takes and reviews that. That goes through the Joint Ways and Means Committee. That's where the last Joint Ways and Means Subcommittee, that was Larry, Chair Jackson and I went and presented. And then once that's finalized, then the governor signs that, and then that becomes our 25-27 budget. So things that we are able to actually make changes to are called policy option packages. This is where you start to change a little bit of your budget. You add, delete, what have you. So 3 things that we have wanted to come forward with and present to the board for review and approval is, well, let me, the asterisk up there, I wanted to make sure I identify this real quick, is they now have a new process where the governor's office reviews this in tandem with the CFO office, the chief financial office, and that's to make sure that we're in alignment with the governor's priorities. So they're reviewing it even before. The previous process, we would submit those policy option packages We wouldn't hear anything until the fall, and then they would come back and say, yay or nay, you can go forward with this. They're actually working with us in tandem right now, which I actually think is a good thing. A lot of times agencies put a lot of work into these, and then it's done and dead in the fall. And so this is nice to be able to work with them in tandem, knowing that they're on board with this. We'll be submitting the policy option packages next week just for an initial review again. They're going to take a look at that. That's based on anything that you guys recommend going forward after today. So here's the three. These are the priorities that we place on them. Waterway access is obviously that program is increasing revenue. We want to make sure that we bake that into our budget. We would like to ask for us to increase it $750,000 per biennium. And what that does is that keeps us from having to go back to the E-board and ask for money as revenues are increasing.
Has the governor given you priorities? Are these the governor's priorities?
The governor's three main priorities are
Housing,
behavioral health, education, and behavior health. And then the fourth one now is we're starting to hear about is more customer service from the agencies as well, which is where we're going to identify in the second.
So you're going to put these items within those.
Those are priorities for her. We'll still come forward with our priorities, and then she'll see if that.
But you're not going to try to fit these within her priorities. Okay.
No. And then the second policy option package that we're asking for is adding a public service representative to registration section. Currently, this biennium, Andrew has been working on process improvement, as well as we've had a temp trying to help us get caught up on titling, and they have done a fantastic job. And so we want to bake that into the budget as well and add another customer service rep, which would fall into those governor's priorities. And then the last and final one is outfitter guides. We cannot make any changes to that program until we address the interstate commerce. And what that issue is currently for in-state resident guides, they pay $150, and then out of state, they pay whatever their state guiding fees are. And we need to have that addressed prior to making any changes to the program. So we want to make sure that we address that. And then also environmental issues are starting to creep up. You're having seasons either are short, maybe closed. And so guides are able to move throughout the state. And so you're having some increased costs for enforcing those laws. And so we want to work with the policy option package and see if we can address some of those issues. And then this is basically our 23-25, just a quick overview. You guys have already seen these many times. This just provides revenue forecasting. So the revenue fund, other funds is 32 million. Federal funds is about 6.9. You can see from the middle graph that you have the U.S. Coast Guard's about 67% of those federal funds, while U.S. Fish and Wildlife is 33%. And then that last graph there is the source of other funds. You have title and registration, and then fuel tax, which makes up a majority of the funding for the agency. Budget narrative. This provides expenditures. You'll see from the left side that special payments is about 24.5 million. Special payments are Janine's grants, law enforcement payments, all of that. And then your personal services is 10 million. That's for staff costs. That's for the staff that do all the good work. And then service and supplies, your pens, papers, computers, phones, falls into that category. And then you'll see in the middle graph, the allocation by program. You have facilities is at about 30%, law enforcement about 42, admin and education is about 24. And admin and education includes registration unit, business services, director's office, some voting safety, the policy group. So it's a sizable chunk in there. And then the last one is the distribution by fund type. That shows you how much each of the programs receive for other funds or if it's federal funds. And then this is just a budget comparison, shows 21-23 kind of the light gray, and then the blue is the 23, 25. And then when I come back in July, you'll get to see that it's just slightly increased. Most of it would be the inflation cost. And then some of what we look at is revenue outlook. And that's, I just want to give a shout out to Preston Merchant, who is our budget analyst, and he is doing a fantastic job. He has to take and build a picture of what are we looking at. So your question about registration, we look at it, we start to see, okay, are we declining? We want to make sure that our budget is in alignment with that, because we don't want to become over allocated thinking we're going to receive something more and then not receive it. And so we have to, we have to keep a pretty good eye on that. And there's many discussions that Preston and I have in my office about the future projections, because obviously if registration is down, that affects many other things. That may affect your fuel tax. Sure. That may affect your RBS grants. That may, you know, it's a subsequent and will continue. And so we're gonna keep an eye on all of that. And that's basically it. So we are looking to have a discussion and a resolution on the policy option packages, and if we go forward with those three. Do you want to back up to the policy option package? So these are the three. Waterway access, that's increasing the 750,000, baking that into our budget going forward, which would minimize the having to go to the e-board. Adding a public service representative for the registration unit, and then the outfitter guide fee package.
So in previous meetings, we've talked about getting away from paper permits and paper licenses and going to electronic. Are we incorporating that into the budget, or is there a budget impact if we do that?
So remember, with the folks can get the waterway access permit electronically already. And then one that we'd most recently talked about was the boater education card. And people now can actually, when they get a new boater education card, they can get that digitally. We have to do a few more technology changes if you already have a boater education card and you want to get a digital. And we've had a few states that also want to make that change with the software that we use. So we actually are moving forward to where if you want to stop carrying your card around, you could get that without paying. If now you'd have to pay a lost card fee, and we don't want to do that to people. We'd like to get it where they can request it. We just give them the digital. And so we're working on the technology changes for that piece.
Questions? On the policy option package number one, if I understand you correctly, you're just looking to increase the budget authority.
Yes. Yes.
If the funds aren't there, the funds aren't there.
Correct. Correct. And part of it's not an issue, but part of what happened here is this is a fairly new program, and it's established in 2019. And so trying to project what the revenue would be is awfully tough. And so we're doing better than anticipated. And so we just want to make sure that we encourage that. And so Janine has ample time to utilize those funds and grants. And so we just want it baked right into the budget.
And then the second question, on the slide that you had with the fuel tax being 34%. Yeah. And this might be overly concerned about nothing, but I'm just curious, with all of the transportation woes, funding woes being discussed, and transportation package coming up in upcoming years, is that codified pretty well in statute?
It is in statute.
Is there any concern with other people dipping into that?
No, it's baked in statute. I think probably some of the concerns that I know Preston and I and Larry have had is obviously fuel tax. If you have a huge shift to electric cars, what's that going to look like? And it is something that definitely the Marine Board is looking at. And it does concern me, I'll be honest.
Yeah, statewide, they're projecting fuel tax revenues to decrease pretty drastically over the next few years. So
yeah,
I think, Member Lambert, one of the concerns there would be if on the car side, it ever got to the point where that tax just wasn't worth administering anymore, that could have some really big implications for us. in between. The boating technology is pretty far behind on the electric, although there's starting to be some more. You know, I think in a big transportation package, it'll certainly come up. And, you know, when that does, I guess we could see if that's an opportunity to try to increase that for ourselves. But I don't think that's the discussion they'll want to have at that time. I think they'll be looking at the road system and the need to fund those roads. And so it's a definitely on our long-term. We're not quite at the spot that ODOT's at yet with it, but foreseeably in the future as boats go more electric.
Yeah, my only concern is as different stakeholders start having those conversations, they look to grow the entire pie and not just grow their individual pieces of the pie at somebody else's expense, in this case, Marine Board. Good to hear.
Well, there's some discussion. ODOT started a pilot program probably at least 10 years ago of people using GPS to track mileage traveled in the state, and they pay a certain amount per mile. And currently it's being administered as a gas tax rebate. But if they get rid of the gas tax and go to that mileage tax, that's a huge change. And that's something that I know a lot of folks are talking about considering for the transportation package.
Yes, Chair Jack, that's a good reminder on that bigger picture. And don't take this as an exact number. I'm gonna break my own rule, make something up on the fly, but the last number I saw, we get a few $100s per registered boat in the fuel tax when you break. So it's to fee our way out of it with boaters would be very difficult. That would be you know, they're paying it now through the gas tax, but directly feeding that would be quite a shift for boaters. So certainly things that we're going to be paying attention to.
So the first
So
two
I have
seem
some.
pretty.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I would say the first two seem pretty cut and dry. I'm still struggling with the third, exactly what's being asked, but what the package is.
And these aren't, it isn't necessarily a whole package that you guys need to approve. If you approve 1, 2, 3, you know, that really, it's broken down. So obviously we will work with whatever you need. But did you have questions on the
third one, the outfitter guide one?
So Member Lambert, I bet you Member Early has questions on that one as well. I'm just going to guess.
Yeah.
But Member Early, did you want us to try to answer Member Lambert's questions, or did you want to share your thoughts and then we can have kind of one discussion about that package?
And well, I wasn't sure if we should do that right now or if we should wait until the legislative concepts on item E to discuss that.
So the thing that's kind of funny is in the state world, we always have to have two tracks. We have the policy track and the money track. And so it seems like they would be joined into one process, but they're not because they are congruent. But let's go ahead and have the discussion now. I think now is good as time as any, and it informs our legislative concept as well. So.
Okay. Well, then I'll jump right in because being an outfitter guide, I respect the amount of time that Brian and Cindy probably put into doing this, and I understand the interstate commerce fee. I don't see any other states changing that at this time, and so I understand we probably would like to be on the forefront of being in compliance, but I also know how much time was spent by the GAC years ago to come up with this package that we have right now that provides some equality between our resident guides and our non-resident guides, especially for those of us who are on a border. So being on a border here, if I decide to fish in California, I'm going to pay a tremendous amount of money down there. And then moving, when they come across the border, they have to pay the same thing, which creates some equality right there. But with the proposed fee package, it actually penalizes our resident guides, and I think is going to disenfranchise a user group who has always been very, very supportive of the Marine Board. So this gives me heartburn.
Thank you for that, Member Early, and I can use that maybe as a springboard to perhaps catch Member Lambert up a little bit on the issue, just since it's probably new to him, and you covered some of the really good points about the challenges with this idea. So right now, as Christy talked about, a guide in Oregon, the fee is $150. I think it's been that fee
Since 2014.
since 2014. And our statutes written, or our rules are written that we'll charge you, an out-of-state resident guide, whatever their state would charge us. So a Washington person that wants to come guide at Bowie 10, because their state won't let them guide below Longview unless they have a charter license, and they don't give those out very easily, might pay us $2,000. I think it's right around $2,100 to be a non-resident guide in Oregon. But if a guide came from Montana, they would pay a different amount, because we charge whatever their state would charge our people. So that's that equity that Member Early's charging. It's sort of like, we're going to do to you what you do to us, and it all works out. So the challenge we've run up against, and Member Early certainly want to continue the conversation this morning about whether we're ready for it or what we should do in the future if we're not ready. The challenge that we've had is we've tried to make other changes to those statutes around the guides and outfitters. And every time we do, it goes to Legislative Council, who drafts the statutory language. And by their standard, they look at a whole chapter. And if they think there's a problem legally with the chapter, they can't just fix what you're wanting to change. They have to try to also fix this other piece. And they've flagged continuously when we've tried to make what I would say are some good changes, and said, well, we can't draft your change without fixing this, because we think there may be a problem with interstate commerce law, because you're charging more simply because they're out of state, not because there's more, there's not a bigger administrative burden. If you can prove there's a cost associated with, you can charge it, but you just can't charge that way. So it balls us up from being able to make other changes. But then again, as Member Early pointed out, this is how other states are doing it. So that's the challenge that we're up against, is that at some point we have to sort out how to do this. But I hear Member Early saying, what are we doing to help protect our guides? Because it's reasonable to think if our fees go down relative to their state fees, well, they're going to come, into our state probably more so, especially Member Early experiences it in her neck of the woods. I think the group up here in the Columbia experiences it. There's probably a little bit over in the Snake, Milwaukee area as well. So essentially what we're asking for with the concept would be a flat fee of $500. Sorry, we've had a few different numbers floating. $500, everybody pays it, whether you're resident or non-resident. But then that creates all the problems that Member Early identified.
And I'll just follow up on that, because I recognize that Bowie 10 is a big fishery, but we're talking about a very, very limited time. So, and we're talking about Washington guides that are coming down to there. You may get a few from California that venture up that way, but we are impacted severely in this area, and even over into the Rogue Valley by California, because California has lost a lot of their fisheries right now. So we are seeing a huge increase in the numbers here. And, I just feel like increasing the resident fees by that much at this time is going to create some bad will among one of our, stakeholder user groups that has always been very supportive of the Oregon State Marine Board. But on top of that, you're probably going to force some of those guys to decide whether or not they want to actually get a license anymore, since it's a free-for-all for out-of-state guides to be able to come here. And so, already, and we're talking about a really long season here. So, where Bowie 10 is like a month, our fishery down here runs not full year, but a good portion of the year. We're talking a good 6-month season on the Rogue Bay and for springers. So it has a huge impact here. I really would like to see some more work done on that. I think that you're going to have some huge outcry, and it's going to create some really bad will amongst our resident guides.
So thank you for that, Member Early. I think, Member Early, is it's also safe to say that some of the changes, at least you know it a lot better than I do, but just as a person who recreationally gets out in areas where guides show up from all over, I think one of the things that's changed in the guiding industry that I've observed is that in the old days, a lot of people sort of just seemed to have their home water and they never really traveled much out of that. Maybe they'd come up to Buoy 10 or maybe go down, hit the road for a stretch. But nowadays it's really, I see, at least in the areas I go, the advent of social media is the guides build up their following and people that like to work with them. And then the guide will just move to wherever the fishery is. So if California closes a fishery, they take their clients and come up to the Rogue. If the Rogue closes, then I see them up at Newport. But it's really changing the nature of the guiding business, in my opinion, from an area where they can have a bigger impact than they could have before, because they're able to communicate so directly with their client base through social media. And today was a really good ocean day in Newport. So all week long, my Facebook page of the guides I follow has been, hey, I'm going to run a trip on Wednesday in Newport. Anybody wants to ride with me? That's a new dynamic that wasn't there 5-10 years ago. Would that be something you've seen as well, Member Early?
Yeah, and that definitely has had an impact. And just a case to your point there is that last summer when they shut down all of California to all salmon fishing, and the Rogue Bay started, pumping out all of their social media like, hey, we're killing them here, come fish and stuff like that. We saw an influx of illegal guiding, people who had not really gotten their guide licenses yet, coming to check it out. And then they decided to become legal, probably because there was, a lot of people that were eyeballing them. A lot of the resident guides were. But the other problem that is happening is that because it's so easy to cross the border, they can come and illegally guide here for a week and be gone. And we don't have any opportunity to even enforce a license or even try to get, an SIU unit down here to be able to target that group. I just, I mentioned this to a couple of people and they just came unglued. So, I just really feel like we're going to see some big backlash off of this.
Can I ask that we take the slide picture down and go back to the screen, because I'm really having a hard time seeing if any of the people in the room have questions or comments. Thank you. One question I have, and I'm not sure who this is directed at. It's probably actually not directed at Christy, but possibly Alan. So you can address that in your part of the discussion, Alan. I fully understand what Val's talking about in terms of illegal guides and people coming up from out of state. If we do change the guide fee, the fees, is there a way to maybe put a limitation on the number of out of state guide permits, the way that we do in some other aspects of, limiting licenses to out of state people?
Chair Jackson, that discussion's been had over the years. Member Early probably can speak better to it to myself. To be candid off the cuff, I don't know where we run into any type of interstate commerce issues there if we're prohibiting guides from out of state to work in our state. I imagine Member Early's experienced that in different parts of her guiding career in different states. That's a discussion that we've also worked closely with ODFW, and I know Brian Paulson and his team have had some of those discussions. They're not at a spot where I would say, we're not at a spot where there's like a joint proposal with ODFW and Marine Board to talk about how you might limited entry guide. But maybe Member Early wants to chime in with, I'm sure, a lot more experience on that subject.
They have done a lot of work over the last several years in evaluating limited entry for guides. And there were a lot of guides, especially when we saw the big influx around the border areas, that were supporting the idea of a limited entry system. But there are also problems inherent in that limited entry. So I think that every time it comes up, then it kind of always goes back to the drawing board as not feasible for us at this time. There would have to be legislation to create the limited entry, and also to be able to, actually the qualifications for it. And then so then then you have to have an additional portion of that which provides a saleability of your limited entry permit. And is the permit applied to just one area? Does it apply for the entire state? it's a pretty complicated system. There was limited entry up in Alaska and in an area that I was in. And when they instituted limited entry for a halibut fishery, a halibut sport charter fishery up there, it was through the PFMC. And I mean, because I didn't have a certain number of use days, I actually got kicked out. And yet I had been doing it for 20 years. So, you know, I think that there are some sideboards in there that are probably a little bit, you know, troublesome for a lot of people. You know, I would just, it would be my suggestion that we kind of kick this back to maybe, I think of some more solutions to this problem. Engage the GAC. I know that there's a brand new bunch of people on the GAC now, and that might be beneficial because a lot of the guys who just went off the GAC, their last meeting was the last one I attended as well. They were the ones who were instrumental in helping to develop the framework for the reciprocity between out-of-state guides and in-state guides. So I would really like to see us just put this policy option package, you know, on the back burner at this time and maybe do some more research on that. Maybe look at a statewide license, and I'm just talking off the top of my head here, maybe a statewide license that actually is equitable across the board, but has use area fees. And so, you know, there's certain areas of the state, like where I am down here, where you have to have federal permits in order to be able to even utilize some of the river sections. And so the same thing is in Eastern Oregon also. There's a lot of U.S. Forest Service competitive areas that require you to have additional use permits. So I would just encourage, I would just like to see this go back to the drawing board and maybe have some more discussions about it. Engage our guide community and our GAC and get some more feedback from them.
So what I'm hearing from, so I guess first off to Christy, are you looking for guidance from the board on acceptance or acceptance, neutrality, or rejection of those 3 points?
Correct, Chair Jackson.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing from Vice Chair Early is the first 2 to move forward with and put the 3rd one on hold.
Yes, that would be, if I needed to make a motion, that would be my motion.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
So,
well, I would.
Member Withy, would you like to weigh in?
I support the first 2 for sure. I'm still up in the air about the 3rd one, and tabling it is fine with me.
Okay, Member Lambert?
I concur.
And that's sort of my feeling too. So I would like a motion on the issue.
I would move that we, sorry.
Director Moore?
Yeah, if I could, sorry, Member Early. I think what might be helpful for staff would be to articulate, you know, the tabling in the back burner. I think it might be helpful, you know, Member Early talked about like talk to the guides. I think it would be helpful, and Brian's not here today, and he's, you know, really the one who's done the most work on this. I think it's good that we're getting a sense that the board's not here on number 3. I think that's good for you all to get out in your motion. I would ask that perhaps you, at least in the motion, entertain the idea that, you know, Brian and his guide team can follow up, particularly with the guide advisory and Member Early, to see if there's any chance to breathe life in this by the July timeframe when you would have to make a absolute decision. So I don't know how to articulate that in a motion, but I'd really appreciate if you kind of gave that direction for staff to come back and do some of that work, if that makes sense.
Sure, I can do that. And I know we have another meeting with the GAC coming up. Cindy sent out a doodle poll about that. And as the board representative on that, I sit in on those. So I would make a motion that we accept the policy option packages 1 and 2 to move forward and to ask staff to go back to the guide community, the GAC, to get some feedback on the POP for the guide outfitter fee increase.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'd just like to say that I do support the first POP, knowing that law enforcement is continuing to do education and outreach, and with our boating safety advocates also doing outreach about the waterway access permit, that to be able to capture that revenue from increased permit sales, I think is really important. So with that, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All right, motion passes.
And I just follow up again. I know that Cindy and Brian have put some work into this. I know it's been kicked around for a little while about increasing the price for the guide outfitter program. The other concern I have is that the revenue that's brought in by the outfitter guide program through the non-residents has a pretty good impact on the guide outfitter program. It's not a self-sustaining program. We all recognize that, but I think that that taking away some of that funding would also have an impact. So I don't see where this is going to equate to the exact same amount that that we've seen in the past. But again, I've not seen any of the numbers, and I would just encourage Brian to share some of that information with us so that we can make a better informed decision on that.
That's great insight. Thank you. So I think we're done with item D. Christy, thank you and your team for all your work. And we're going to move on to item E, legislative concepts with Alan Hansen.
Yeah, I was saying, as Alan walks up here, I think he probably owes Christy.
Yeah,
she got the hard one out of the way.
Thank you, Chair Jackson. I'd first like to thank Member Early for the award coin for Glenn Dolphin. I know had a conversation with Glenn. He was very surprised and very appreciative of that award. So thank you again. And also, we have a new face on the screen here. I'd like to introduce Phil Hudspeth. He's the new Dorothy. He's replacing Dorothy Deal. He's our new policy coordinator, and he'll be largely working on the ADV program. He joins us from the employment division, where he has a lot of experience doing outreach on paid leave Oregon. And he's also a former Coast Guard, so he has significant boating experience in his past. And so far, we've enjoyed having him here. I think this is week 2, the start of week 2, day 6. Okay. So anyways, I'd like to introduce Phil Hudspeth. Phil, did you want to say anything at this point?
Good morning, Chair Jackson, Vice Chair Early, and members of the Oregon State Board. Hi, as Alan said, I'm Phil Hudspeth. I do come to you from Paid Leave Oregon, where I was the Outreach and Customer Care Supervisor. Prior to that, I was a Program Analyst and then an Operations and Policy Analyst. As Alan mentioned, I was served in the Coast Guard, had been active in the sailing community in the Eugene area. I was on an all-veteran sailing team and various other water sports over the years. I'm really delighted to be part of this team. Really want to thank everyone at the State Marine Board. They have been absolutely welcoming, and I'm really delighted to get to serve Oregonians in the boating community within Oregon. I just also have had the opportunity to get out with Alan and Glenn doing a clean marina inspection up on the Columbia River at Cascade Locks and Hood River, and just was a great day to be out in the field with them and learning a lot about the program. Looking forward to meeting you all and continuing to serve the board.
Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you.
So my name's Alan Hansen, Policy and Environmental Manager for the Oregon State Marine Board. I'm here to present the legislative concept, and in coordination with the POP that Christy presented on the Outfitter Guide program, is to increase the fees on the guides from 150 to 500 across the board. The purpose of that is to create one FTE for the state police, and those would be effective in 2026. I was listening to the prior discussion, so I believe, I'm not sure if your motion covered the legislative concept. I'm assuming that's the intent. But this is going to be tabled for now, like the POP. So, you know, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to discuss those.
And
Go
I'm
ahead,
all
Member
for
Early.
I'm all for funding another state police position for the Outfitter Guide program. I just feel like we really need to go back to the drawing board, engage some of our guide community through the GAC, maybe through some listening sessions or something. Again, when I mentioned this to a few people, they were not very happy, and that's putting it mildly.
So I do have a question. You mentioned that Alaska has a limited entry. Is that, would you recommend us looking at that model to help?
There's other states that also have even limited entry for guides on rivers. So there, you know, it's not to recreate the wheel or anything. The limited entry system that Alaska has is primarily for the saltwater. And so in some ways they have a little bit of what they call limited entry on some of the rivers. The U.S. Forest Service in their permitted areas have a limited entry per se, because if you have a river section that only has 40 permitted guides, then the guide, if they want to, you can't technically sell your commercial permit, but you can actually sell a portion of your business, and then they can apply for that permit with your business. So limited entry works a little bit different because you can actually sell the permit. But you know, limited entry was something that was kicked around quite a bit. I want to say like 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I know Randy Henry did quite a bit of work on that. And I know probably Cindy has some information on the limited entry system. But, you know, again, there are guides in Oregon that would be supportive of it, and there would be guides that would not be supportive of it. And so it's a battle either way.
Thank you.
But do you need a motion on this one also?
I think we already made it.
Member Early, I think we're fine since this one's listed as informational. We'll be okay with the prior motion.
Okay.
Anyone
Yeah.
feels like you want to add something more to the motion? Be a time. All right, thank you.
We okay?
And I would
right.
just ask Alan, just one last thing. When you start, you know, when this starts getting to be a little bit more worked forward, you know, even the application of the fee increase and how it will be utilized with OSP, it would be helpful to kind of know some more of that information. I think that, you know, the guide community can embrace things like that if they know what it is.
Sure. We can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Early.
Thank you, Ellen. And our next item is item F, the facility grants with Janine. Thank you, Janine.
Thank you, Chair Jackson.
I think you're backwards.
Well, I tried the other way. Then. Okay. This is for our Cycle 2 grants. The board received 7 applications, identifying over $2.5 million of needs. We do not have that much money available, but the applications and the applicants are good. They've had lots of match. And I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this. I do want to also mention that beginning May 1st, we will open up our Cycle 3 applications, and those will be heard by the board in October. So we'll have one more chance to award some funding. Any questions before we start the individual application consideration? If not, we'll move right into.
Go ahead.
Okay, we'll move into grant 1729, which is with Ben Park and Rec District, and Rachel Colton is on the line. So this is a project that the board has been aware of. The Park District has gone through planning processes. This is a site we toured, I want to say about a year and a half ago or so. And this will create some accessible access on the Deschutes at Miller's Landing. Rachel, do you want to add some comments on this?
I'd be happy to. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Rachel Colton. I'm a park planner with Ben Park and Recreation District. As Janine mentioned, this project is actually the result of our Deschutes River Access and Habitat Restoration Plan, which was adopted by our board at the end of 2021. We had nearly 5,000 public touch points as part of the development of that plan. And the Miller's Landing project that is the subject of your review today was one of the high priority projects that came out of that plan. And I think, it's a super exciting project for us. This is certainly an area of town that is highly visited by both residents and those who are visiting Bend as well. And there is currently 2 access points that are degraded and not at all accessible in the terms of like ADA, capital ADA accessible, as Janine mentioned in her board report. And so this is a fantastic opportunity. We have 2 access points, although the one that we're focusing on today with you all is access point 1, is the one that is particularly and predominantly focused on really getting boats into the water, whereas the other access point is for those who want to swim and wade. And so there's a fantastic opportunity to make that existing boardwalk, which is frankly hard to use and not ADA accessible, with multiple options for access entry into the water, so people have an opportunity to use a transfer station or a roller launch, whatever best suits their needs. And then there's also an opportunity to restore some of the habitat that's been degraded over the years through the creation of user-created access points. So we appreciate the funding that you all provide us for the design of this access point, as well as a couple of others in close proximity at McKay and Columbia Parks, and hope we can continue to partner to actually bring this project to life later this year. We are going through our entitlement process right now with various agencies to get our land use permits, and the only remaining permit out of the 4 we need is our DSL permit, so that's still in process, and we're anticipating we'll start construction at the end of this year. So we appreciate your consideration, and I'm certainly here for any questions you all have specific to the project.
If the board has questions, we can take those, and then I'll make my recommendation.
Yeah, this is Member Withy. I'm a resident of the Bend community. We did tour this site a year ago, so everyone had the opportunity except Stephen to see the site and see the need. I'm very supportive of this project. It's a very heavy use area. And right now, the access to the Deschutes River and the Bend area for people with mobility challenges is limited. So this will really help the community there access the river and get the use of that waterway that isn't present today. So I'm very supportive of the project. I do have a question for you, Janine. You recommend conditional approval. Now that condition is based on additional waterway access permit funds, right?
Yes, that is.
And there is not adequate funding today, but you do anticipate that will be available in the future.
Yes, as identified at the last board meeting, the board encouraged us to look for opportunities to increase limitation. We are doing that and have prepared a request. We're just waiting for permission to submit it.
That's the only condition that you're
correct
referring to.
Yes.
So again, I'm very supportive of the project. And if you're ready for a motion, I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that the board approve grant number 1729, conditionally on the availability of waterway access funding in the amount of $300,000 to match the $395,734 that are being presented by the I guess it's cash for the community. So that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of awarding this grant, say aye.
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 All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much, Rachel, for coming out today.
Thank you for the opportunity and thanks for your support. We appreciate it very much.
The next grant is grant 1730. And with us today, we have Rick Bruin with the City of Tigard. He's their Parks and Recreation Manager. This is the second phase of improvements at Cook Park. We've previously given the city a grant to do some design engineering and permitting. And this will be an important part of replacing the boarding docks that go along the boat ramp.
Thank you, Janine. Good morning, board. It's very good to be here. Got to enjoy our beautiful ride over to this part of the state this morning, so thanks for that opportunity. And before I get going, I just want to comment. You were mentioning, Director Warren, about customer service as being a priority. I can't thank Janine and her team enough for all the customer service they've given us and many other districts, park districts and programs. We couldn't submit good grants without the support of staff. So I think that's our grant applications is a byproduct of, our partnership. So just wanted you all to know that. As Janine mentioned, we started off about 2 years ago looking at planning, designing, and engineering. This is a very decadent old circa 1996 wooden boarding dock that is well beyond useful life. Our intent at the time was to see if we could get ADA access. One of the City of Tigard's priorities is accessibility through our parks and trails and onto the river and so forth. Kind of the good news that came out of our planning and design was we actually were able to expand our study area. And Cook Park is the crown jewel of the Tigard Park system. It's our largest park, most diverse park. Accessibility is a key component of what we do. We just finished the new inclusive playground nearby, fully accessible playground. So as we got into the planning of this and recognizing we likely would not get the accessibility we want just simply replacing the boarding dock, again, very much needed. With the expansion of the study area, we are now planning in the next phase of our work is to create a fully accessible dock. We had actually come up with a design, shared it with Janine and her team, and actually in that future phase would be very similar. I think we looked at the Westport concept as a way to improve what we're envisioning. So with all that said, and the very heavy use that we get on the Tualatin River through Cook Park and in our partnership with Tualatin River Keepers, what we are hoping your support will provide us the ability to replace the existing boarding dock, which is adjacent to a kind of what our motorized boat ramp, which is more heavily used for kayaks and paddleboards, limited motorized usage. But we will go into this phase with the replacement of the docks and then get that up hopefully later this year, if all goes well with your support. And we'll get those replaced and then follow that up with continuing our work for a fully accessible dock. And what that will do is very congested use in this area. We will disperse our user groups. We'll create an expansion of our paddleboard, kayak, boat rental program with the river keepers. So all of this said will increase accessibility for all users, all abilities to access the Tualatin River. So if y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for coming out today. Does anybody on the board have questions?
So looking at the original budget versus the revised budget, You did secure quite a bit of funding from ODFW. That's federal fund.
Yes, it is.
So the percentages that we're providing has decreased to 16% from over 60% before.
Yes,
The table here hasn't been updated.
I noticed.
So I can appreciate that, and I again appreciate you trying to make it fully accessible for all people. So I'm very supportive of the project. It looks like it's very much needed, and I know the use is forever increasing in that area.
Oh, no, so.
And the existing facility is over 20 years old, as he describes here, and has been subjected to a lot of environmental conditions. So it really, to me, is very much needed.
Thank you.
So if you're looking for a motion, I make a motion that we approve grant number 1730 for Tiger. The amount of $294,000. Trying to get to that page here. $51,465 in waterway access grant funds. $22,035 in voting facility grant funds. Total of $387,000. That's not right. For a total of $73,500.
All right.
Second that. Did member Withy say conditionally approve?
No, I slipped on that. Conditionally approved. It's part of my motion.
Still second.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right. The motion passes. Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to move on to grant number 1731, the Port Abandon.
Yes, and I see that Kathy Reed is here for the port. Jeff was on earlier, and I'm assuming he had to head into his meeting. So Kathy's going to represent this application. This is kind of the completion of the work for the marina. So previously the board funded the boat ramp, the marina project, and for the cruising boaters, showers and sanitation are highly desired. The existing restroom is very far away, or they're forced to go use the gas station. And so this is a great project to really finalize the port's marina as a cruising destination for boaters transiting the Pacific. Kathy, do you want to share anything about the application?
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. As you mentioned, we are upgrading our infrastructure at the port, and we've updated our boat launch and our marina. And the last step is a new administration building that will be closer to the marina, because currently it's about a half mile or so away. So we also need to add public restrooms and showers, because that is something that is severely missing in Old Town Banton. There's a big shortage, so it's a very welcome project for our community. Currently, there's no public showers, but we have had an increase in demand throughout the years from transient boaters and annual mortgage holder boaters as well. So if we can get this project going, the infrastructure for the port will be complete and modern, and we should increase visitor satisfaction. So thank you. I'll try to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Kathy?
No questions, just a comment. This is an incredible project down there. I was there not very long ago, and just really encouraged by all the progress that has been made down there in the port. And it is true, more restrooms are definitely needed down there. So yeah, I'm all in favor of continuing or helping to fund this last little portion of things.
Thank you.
And I concur with what Vice Chair Early said, and also, this is a project that the board has supported continuously over the duration of the improvements. So this is just sort of the final piece. Any other discussion?
I have one question, Chair Jackson. I'm just curious. This project shows $75,000 of state parks cash match. Just curious how state parks got involved in this.
We applied for a grant through them.
Oh, so it's just grant money from them?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
I would make a motion to conditionally approve, subject to the increase in waterway access grant funding limitation, $27,000 in waterway access grant funds, $50,000 in boating facility grant funds, $50,000 in federal boating infrastructure grant funds to match $246,327.50 of applicant match for a total project of $351,596.50 for the Port of Bandon.
I second that. Any further discussion? All right. Those
Thank
who,
you.
all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy, and Member Early. The port will be doing a dedication on May 1st of reopening the ramp and the marina. There'll still be a few minor things to work through, but I can send you the details if you'd like to attend that with me.
I would, yes, please. I would appreciate that.
All right, thank you. Next is grant 1732 with the Port of Columbia County. And with us today, we have Lacey Toll. Good morning, members of the board. Thank you for having me. So this is a third phase. We've done the design and engineering. We have funded, actually, I guess the fourth. We have funded the upland accessibility improvements and staging areas, the dredging, and now we are purchasing equipment for the non-motorized launch at the port. Lacey, you want to add things?
Sure. We applied for a Travel Oregon grant in the fall and received $100,000 towards this project. We will be purchasing and installing a 24 by 20 foot ADA platform, exactly like the one in Westport, Oregon, and installing it on the kayak portion of the Scappoose Bay Marina, which is the south side of the marina. We're really excited about this project. Adding more accessibility is really important, and I think it's a great addition to the marina. Any questions?
So going through the write-up, I do have a question as to whether this includes this installation
Yes,
of the equipment. It does speak several times, says the objective is purchase one non-motorized boat launch that includes transfer bench. It doesn't say anything about installation, so I just want to verify it includes installation.
It does. The port is still working on a couple permits, although I think they will get them in time. We didn't want to make this contingent upon the actual installation that may happen slightly outside of the period, but we're hopeful.
But the cost estimates include installation. Yeah. Again,
Any other?
go ahead. Again, I'm fully supportive. And if it matches what we stay at Westport, that would be a great facility. Wait.
Member
Chair
Lambert,
Jackson,
did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, kind of picking up off where Member Withy mentioned that what we saw yesterday was really, just in my opinion, first time I've seen a facility like that, meeting this dock setup, and it was amazing. And I just couldn't help but think, man, if more people knew that this was here, more people would be here using it potentially. So fully support the project and just encourage you to market it, let it be known that it's out there, and hopefully attract some folks out there for it. Pretty neat.
And I want to add in that my question was also, is this going to be a Westport-like facility? And you answered my question there. And having paddled out of Scappoose, it's a facility that is very self-marketing. It's really busy, and once word gets out that a launch like this is out there, it's probably going to even explode more than it has in the past few years. So I also support this. So I'm going to make a motion that we conditionally approve, subject to an increase in waterway access grant funding limitations, $65,000 in waterway access grant funds to match $100,000 of applicant match for a total project cost of $165,000.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Member Early's on.
I was
Member
having
Early's on mute.
issues.
Okay, so the motion passes. Thank you for coming out today, Lacey.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. All right. Grant number 1733 is with Oregon State Parks and for Mongold State Park. And with us today, we have Daryl Monk. As mentioned at the last board meeting, staff have been working on a prototype with modifying our self-adjusting dock system. Current docks are short, it bottlenecks the boat ramp. They also have a lot of challenges rising as reservoirs will sometimes dramatically increase quickly. And so we wanted to take on this challenge to, one, expand the length of the docks to create more staging area for boaters that are launching or retrieving, but also to help adjust some of the high maintenance components with the docking system. So staff contacted state parks and asked if they would like to be one of our demonstration areas to see functionality of this. And at Mongold, the parks manager, Bob Ray, is fantastic. And he will be able to tell us firsthand his observations, some ideas that he'll have to solve some issues as we're going through this new modified design. Daryl, you want to add more?
Sure. Good morning, Chair Jackson, Director Warren, board members. For those that are not familiar with Mongold, highly used facility, I think probably one of our busiest facilities in state parks that has self-adjusting dock system. Also, those docks are exposed to high wind, wave, and wake. So they do get some abuse out there. The existing docks have been there close to 30 years. We've replaced decking, bull rails, whalers, rub strips, rollers, repaired brackets, and they're currently at a point now where doing that maintenance anymore. The support structure just doesn't support that. And as Janine mentioned, we have a great park manager up there that is hands-on fixing. He's not always on the phone with the Marine Board saying he needs some support. So I think that'd be a great test bed for this new dock system that I think has been used for a few years as boarding docks. But that missing component is that self-adjusting dock system, which we have quite a few throughout the state and multiple agencies. And that alleviates that pressure treated lumber in the water and enables us to ease a little easier on getting permitting for new dock systems.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
okay. This is a pilot project for this type of modified design.
Yes.
And then you also show Emerald Lake as a pilot project. Are these similar pilot projects or?
It's the same dock system, but different water body applications and different use applications. And so we wanted to really kind of test it out in some different reservoir situations because that's where they're used at. Rather than just assuming everything we see at one location will address a lot of those issues. There are many, many self-adjusting dock systems throughout the state. And so piloting at 2 locations where we have high confidence in the maintenance staff to let us know what is happening and give us good feedback so we can start problem solving any issues was very important to us from not just a responsiveness aspect, but also a financial aspect of testing out the design before we roll it out system-wide.
So these other locations are state park facilities too, or?
Some are state parks. So Prineville has several systems, but they're also on a lot of county facilities. Jackson County has several other reservoirs with self-adjusting, Baker County, Frick County, Lynn County. There's several of them throughout the state.
Well, this is a heavy use area. I drive by there all the time and see it being used and saying to myself, well, there's too many people on that boat ramp for me.
Yeah.
So I'm very supportive of the project.
Are there any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that the board approve grant number 1733. Based on this staff's recommendation, board would approve 103,125 boating facility grant funds to match $494,375 of applicant match for total project cost of $597,500.
I second. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes. Thank you for coming out today, Daryl.
Yeah, Chair Jackson, can I also just extend a great thank you to you guys for the continued partnership and especially Janine's team, working with them for so many years on the support we get from them with surveying, design, construction, permitting, and that support we get during construction. I know a lot of other agencies, public agencies receive that as well. And really our end users don't care who owns the facility. They just want a quality facility and we wouldn't be able to provide that without you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thanks, Daryl.
Thank you.
Grant number 1734. Andy, are you on?
Yes, I'm on. Hopefully my camera's working for you.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So this is the second pilot project. It is at Immigrant Lake. It is also to replace the self-adjusting docks with this new design. Andy, do you want to add anything?
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Andrew Austell. Sorry I couldn't be there today, but I'm the program manager for Jackson County Parks. I just want to first say thank you to the board for consideration of this grant opportunity. And I thought it was important just to point out a few things. Immigrant Lake down here in Southern Oregon is one of our larger, most popular parks, and it definitely presents a high demand for water-based activities and recreation. Both of our boat ramps and boarding docks are very beneficial to our visitors, our users, and of course our boating community. Another thing I just want to point out, we've done a ton of improvements out at Immigrant Lake over the last several years. So we've paved the entire Days area and the boat ramp parking areas. We've replaced stairs in all of the park for safety and ADA access improvements out there. And currently we're working on our tent campground out there. We're doing a complete renovation of the tent campground for accessibility and of course better user experience. This grant opportunity, it's very important to us, and I'm going to use the word crucial, that we can move forward with this boarding dock replacement. These are old docks installed back in the 90s. They've definitely seen their life. They're starting to fail. We're starting to see failure with them. Down here in Southern Oregon, we definitely have drought issues with our reservoir where the lake's fluctuating a lot more than it has in the past. So by that, I mean, lake's coming up quick and then it goes down very quick at sudden times. So we're having to constantly check several times a day with staff to make sure we're pulling up the dock as the lake's coming up and then trying to nudge it back out as that lake goes down, which puts more wear and tear on these boarding docks. For example, last season, we actually had one of our boarding docks came apart off the railing system and it made it unusable for the rest of the season, unfortunately. We were able to do some modifications in the off season and hopefully it lasts and we're going to get it back in the water this summer. So we're just hoping that that works for the summer. The outcome of something like this, it's going to reduce our labor, our other expenses. It's going to keep the other docks, it'll keep it working during our busy season. And I think that's most important for the users out there. But the most important thing, definitely safer and more enjoyable for our users and their experience out there. County's going to provide the project management, force account, equipment, and material for this project. We have a skilled staff that can remove and dispose of the existing dock system. And of course, we'll solicit quotes for a contractor to do this work. And once again, thank you guys very much for your consideration.
Thank you for coming out today, Andy. Does anybody have any questions for him?
No questions, but we were there a few years ago when we had our board meeting down there, and it's exciting to see all of these changes being implemented. So I know this is Steve's stomping ground, so maybe he has a few comments.
No, I think Andy covered it well. I guess, Chair Jackson, I just will throw one thing out for the public record in the sense that I did consult with the Oregon Government Ethics Commission at my own will, just clarifying my role as a board member and how that plays into voting on things that may or may not affect Jackson County in the future. I was advised by the director of Government Ethics Commission that there is no conflict of interest. The county does not qualify as a business, so I will proceed with voting on this. I just wanted to get that out there for the record.
And I would. Oh, so I was going to say I would share that Steve shared that advice with me, which I really appreciated. And it was something I learned something new about government not counting as an entity in that piece. So I'm glad he did that research and is making sure that the board's decisions don't get overturned on an ethics issue.
And I also want to say thank you for researching that, because I was going to ask that question of Director Warren or somebody. So thank you so much. Any other questions related to this grant process?
Andrew,
Anyone want to make?
Andrew, what's the water level today? Is it recovered?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
The water level on the lake, is it recovered from the drought that you've had?
It's getting better. I wouldn't say recovered. We're not at 100% lake level, but I want to say last I looked, we're close to the 70% at this point, and we're still getting water coming in from above. So
Okay.
we're gonna have a good year out there, that's for sure. And I'd like to say that each year starts getting a little bit better, that we're gonna see it get better each year.
Great.
It's a heavily used area, so I would make a motion to approve the $51,250 in the boating facility grant funds to match $233,750 of applicant match for a total project cost of $285,000 for facility grant 1734 in Jackson County.
Second?
Steve's gonna second it.
No,
All right,
you're good.
go for it. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
I heard three. I didn't hear four. Okay, got it. 4 votes in favor. Thank you for coming out, Andy. And
Thank you.
we're moving on
Thank
to
you,
our
Andy.
last
Thank you.
Yes.
grant.
So grant 1735 is with the city of St. Helens, and with us today, we have John Walsh. He's the city administrator. Courthouse docks is probably the second most heavily used tie-ups dock system on the Columbia. It's famous with the cruisers for Halloween times, for summer cruise-in potlucks. It is really kind of a gateway for boaters and a extremely popular destination from every direction, from Astoria, Portland, the Dalles like to come here and enjoy things. The dock is aging. It has the old wooden 4x4 bull rails. A lot of them have weathered, cracked, splintered. The city contacted us and asked us to kind of come and assess things. We did, and we support the upgrades to the metal bull rails with the accessible openings in them, and doing some other repairs to extend the useful life of the docking system. If it's not maintained and these significant improvements aren't made, the cost of future replacement would be in the millions of dollars. So this is a highly needed improvement. John, do you want to add things?
Yeah, thanks, Janine, and thank you, board, for considering this project. St. Helens is a very popular destination, obviously, just given the past investment in the facilities. The facilities wouldn't exist in the condition any condition at all, really, without Marine Board support over the years. There, we have the in-water facilities like Courthouse Docks, and over at Sand Island, there's the 2 sets of docks. The Marine Board came out and did a report on the condition of all 3 of those facilities and a pretty thorough inspection, and left us with a pretty good to-do list with a lot of deficiencies. Last year we approached kind of the worst of the worst. The cross docks were in danger of falling into the water. Through bolts were broken, so we put about 50,000 into those facilities, getting them just safe enough to be open, and moving on to the courthouse docks, which is kind of our main gateway up to the restrooms, the downtown. Simultaneously, we're working on the downtown Riverwalk project, actually kicking off today. We're putting about $20 million into the downtown and extending the old town to make it, it's going to be a really great boating destination in the future very soon. So it's underway after a decade of planning. It's finally all happening. So we're excited about that. We want to have safe boating facilities, get the docks fixed, and the debris boom, which unfortunately that piece broke loose and got away from us. So unfortunate, but it does affect the marina significantly if it's not replaced. So.
Thank you for coming out today, John. Are there any questions for him?
So we speak about maintenance issues here. Are we addressing improving that maintenance in the future so we don't have these kind of problems?
The docks were replaced in '96, so they're that.
So they're old.
They're old. Yeah, they're just.
So it's not just normal maintenance.
Right. The flow docks are there pulling through.
Yes.
Bigger boats.
So that's not the issue. Normal maintenance is being accomplished, and they're realizing their life expectancy.
Right, but so the concrete docks themselves are still in really good shape, but it's all of the other pieces that allow the system to connect. So the whale boards, the through rod, those are the parts that deteriorate the quickest, and if they're not addressed, then you start seeing that the concrete dock sections start breaking, and then we're in the millions of dollars of improvements. So so the city does have a an agreement, a contract to do some work.
Yeah, we do self-perform some of it. Contract with others.
So you're comfortable that the maintenance necessary is being accomplished?
Do the best we can.
Yeah.
So, they're exposed to a lot of weather. They move a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve. Let me get the grant number. Oh, yeah, Jimmy, come on. Grant number 1735. I recommend the board conditionally approve 61,000 boating facility grant funds to match 139,000 of applicant match for a project total cost of $200,000 with the following requirements. The city will cost share equally in the replacement of the debris room section estimated at $25,000 each. The city will require that all materials used in the dock repairs and the boom section fabrication will comply with the Buy American, Build America Act. No ground disturbance is anticipated for this project, but if there is disturbance, the city will provide a copy of the inadvertent discovery plan to OSMB and ODFW.
Second. All right. Steve, you've got it.
You're good. I tried.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes.
Great, thank you. Board members, I would like to introduce one of my staff that is here. I don't know if I formally introduced Josh. I'll have him come here. So Josh Takini is our civil engineer. He's the one that is putting his stamp, his professional credentials on the line when he stamps projects for improvements. He's also performing lots of inspection and really mentoring a lot of our boating facility designers. So I wanted to take this opportunity to thank him for the work he's doing, because although you're hearing my name for a lot of credit, a lot of it is the work that he is doing to make some quality design improvements and doing some work to help out the boaters of the state.
Thank you, Janine. Yes, I'm Josh Takini, boating facilities engineer. Thank you for those kind of words. Thank you to the board for the guidance and helping kind of steer where we go with things. But didn't intend to be here today, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Josh, thank you for all your hard work on all of this, and Janine, especially for putting another fabulous grant package together for our education and information. So thank you both.
You're very welcome.
And I'd just like to echo what Chair Jackson said and commend you, Janine, for always finding creative funding ways for these grants to be able to go through, because where they start and what we see are completely different packages, and just really appreciate your fiscal responsibility.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I concur with that. You know, I think I say A too much. And I should be disapproving some of these if I was doing my job properly, but you're so well prepared and the information is so thorough and you've screened the information that our job is pretty straightforward when it gets to us. So again, thanks.
You're very welcome.
I will just add, I'm one of the rare probably board members who's been on both sides of the grant process, and I appreciate it from this perspective, and I appreciate it from the other side as well, because Janine, believe me, asks you hard questions to really make sure it's a good project, and she's out for the boaters, and that shines through.
Thank you all much.
And with that, we're on our last agenda item, board meeting timelines. Director Warren.
All right, Chair Jackson, I'm going to take what I heard today and see if I can offer some amendments, and then if you have anything else you want to add. So I'd like to bring that outreach discussion back in July. And then I would, as noted in the board book, I'm proposing that we move the eBurst statistic and the BSA statistic to January, in part so that we can have a full season of data so we're not giving you incomplete information. And also in part that I believe October is also a meeting that Brian will not be able to be at because of Leadership Oregon. And as you all know, he really likes to dig into the numbers and has good command of them. So I think you'd get a more complete picture of what's going on in January, both because we'd have full data and we'd have Brian available. I'd like to add an Oregon Kitchen Table follow-up, or however we want to title that, for October, so that we capture that the board has heard the public testimony this morning and expects staff to bring that information back. So that's my proposed changes. And as always, the goal of this is to talk about what you all want to talk about. Feel free to change my ideas or add more topics you want. We want to make sure we're having the discussions that interest you.
Thank you, Director Warren. The notes that I made during the meeting, what you're proposing matches up with the scribbles I made. And just as always, if board members have items that come up that they'd like to see discussed, please share it with me, share it with Director Warren, and we'll get it on the agenda. Anybody else have comments or questions? All right, with that, we are adjourned. We'll see everybody in Salem on July 24th.